Okay, we should be good to go, Chair.
Okay, I call to order this Monday, July 12th, 2021 meeting of the City of West Hollywood Public Safety Commission. I'd like to start the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I believe we are welcoming a new commissioner tonight, Commissioner Danny Roman, and he will be sworn in by Councilmember D'Amico.
All right, good evening, everyone. Before I begin, Danny, I just want to say hello to my colleagues who I see are online, Lauren Meister and the city staff, as well as say hello to Lieutenant Mulder and all of the commissioners here present. Thank you again for all of your time and commitment to our city. Oh, I also see Block by Block is here. So thank you everyone for all of your hard work. All right, Danny, are you ready? You have to unmute yourself.
I'm ready, thank you.
You got it. So we'll begin and just say repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Danny Roman,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that while serving in the office as a member of the Public Safety Commission,
as a
that while serving in the office
while serving in the office
as a member of
the
Public Safety Commission
Public Safety Commission
of the City of West Hollywood,
of the City of West Hollywood,
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations, Danny. That's
Thank
probably
you,
the
John.
hardest moment of your service on the Public Safety Commission. Repeating after me.
Thank you all.
again, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember D'Amico, and welcome, Commissioner Roman. We're
Thank
glad
you.
to have you.
Thanks.
Roll call.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations, Commissioner Roman. And I see your little mini me behind you. Adorable. I think that was one of the best oaths ever with that little guy. Okay, here we go. Thank you, first of all, to those of you that joined us for Connie Rice. Really appreciate you all sitting in and appreciate the quick switch from one meeting to the next. So with that, let's get rolling since you've got a big agenda tonight. Commissioner Balbum.
Present.
Vice Chair Berger.
Here.
Commissioner Hallman.
Present.
Chair Laughlin.
Here.
Commissioner Oliver.
Present.
Commissioner Roman.
Present.
Commissioner Roche.
Present.
Okay. Any adjournment requests? No? Okay. Approval of the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call.
Commissioner Balbum.
Aye.
Vice Chair Berger.
Aye.
Commissioner Hallman.
Aye.
Commissioner Laughlin.
Aye.
Chair Laughlin. Commissioner Oliver.
Aye.
Commissioner Roman.
Aye.
Commissioner Roche.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to the approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes.
Any seconds?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Belbum,
Aye.
Vice Chair Berger,
Aye.
Commissioner Holman,
Aye.
Chair Laughlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Commissioner Roman,
Aye.
Commissioner Roche.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to public comment. It looks as though we have one public comment tonight. Is Lessa Slaughter here?
Yes, I'm here.
Great, thank you. You can begin.
Hi, my name is Lisa Slaughter, and I represent Cookies Melrose. And it's come to our attention that the Public Safety Commission has not been made aware of the breadth and depth of the mitigation measures undertaken by Cookies over the past year and the resulting positive improvements those measures have made. Details of those changes and the mitigation measures Cookies has undertaken were provided in a letter to City Attorney Lauren Langer on March 12th, which referenced that Cookies has reduced its operating hours. Persons approaching the store by foot from Kings Road South are denied entry into the store with no exception. There are no drop-offs in front of the store. Patrons are required to use valet parking. Additionally, Cookies has doubled its security and changed the actual look of the security to become less tactical and more neighborly. Cookies has also expanded its cleaning area around the store. There is no other store, retail, cannabis, or otherwise, that actually has a full-time dedicated staff that patrols and cleans a 4-block radius north, south, east, and west of the location. Additionally, Cookies is the only cannabis retailer that I'm aware of in any city that has a 24-hour patrol car that actually patrols 24 hours, 4 blocks around the location, north, south, east, and west. Cookies has repeatedly reached out to Lieutenant Mulder a number of times, and finally, after 4 or 5 months of trying to reach out, on June 8th, Cookies and the Los Angeles Police Department Officer O'Brien and Lieutenant Mulder met with Cookies and discussed what the issues and concerns were. One issue was brought up, which was an illegally parked car. Cookies immediately investigated that same day, and it turned out that it was a vendor of Cookies. Cookies then contacted that vendor and stated again what their parking policies were, and that if the vendor were to do that again, business would be terminated with that particular vendor. There is a concern here that the perception of Cookies, while a difficult one to turn around, is not been moved or changed at all, despite the positive impacts that Cookies has had and the drop in quality of life issues. Cookies has become an essential part of the community now, with the patrol car acting and being viewed as a form of public safety, getting everything from homeless complaints to scooters. The concern that was stated was done in October 28th in 2020 in a WeHo article where City Manager Paul Aravalo asked Los Angeles to revoke Cookies' cannabis license. The city manager stated there is a direct correlation to the business in that these impacts did not exist before the business opened and have continued uninterrupted since the business has been in operation. The article then went on to state, Cookies has attracted a lot of Black customers who stand out in and near a city like West Hollywood, where only 4% of the population is Black. The controversy over Cookies has sparked another conversation about racism in West Hollywood. Several of those who
Ms. Slaughter, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Slaughter. Do we have any other public comments?
Not at this time, Chair.
Gotcha. Okay. Moving on to item number 9, commissioner comments and liaison reports. Does anyone have any reports?
I do.
Okay, Commissioner Balbone.
So since our last meeting, I attended the Social Justice Task Force kickoff on 5/25, the Melrose Action Neighborhood Watch on 5/26. And I'll just give a brief update. the Social Justice Task Force, I would love to actually attend more of their meetings. It was the initial kickoff, and I think they're going to be doing some promising work, and I think we should establish some way to liaise with them. For Melrose Action Neighborhood Watch, I also think it would make sense to continue to think about ways to work with them. They're dealing with some of the same issues regarding crime and car thefts. So it would be a good idea to stay in touch with them. I also attended the June 17th Civilian Oversight Commission. And there they laid out the OIG reports. And I know that the City Council has actually sent a letter regarding concerns about the false reporting that was indicated in the an LA Times article. There is also an OIG request that's come out related to lack of responsiveness from the sheriff that I would wonder whether or not West Hollywood has taken a position and or reinforced. One of the things that actually in that meeting struck me was they talked a lot about the fact that there is a lack of presence from the sheriff's department at the Civilian Oversight Commission. And that's actually one of the great benefits we have here. So I don't know if there's a way to send a letter of reinforcement that having our sheriff's department and fire and block by block attendees at every meeting here to respond not only to us, but to the community is very impactful. So there was a good guy that came out of that in my mind. One other thing that they did do at that meeting that I think we may want to look at is they hear impact statements for families. And I don't necessarily believe that that's something that we need to do here. Fortunately, we don't have as many issues stemming from unfortunate murders and or deaths that we deal with, but impact statements from the community at large after an incident of crime, it should be an open invitation that maybe we should think about extending that to people in the community who experience any type of crime and or situation. And then the last thing I wanted to highlight is the LGAB has a domestic violence intimate partner recommendation that they're going to be providing to the City Council. It was on their 6-2 agenda. Unfortunately, when I went back to get a copy of it, I couldn't. I'd like to get a copy for all of the commissioners. I think it would be good for us to actually endorse that. It was a partnership with the Transgender Advisory Board, Women's Advisory Board, and the LGAB. And it really talked about good information for citizens, good information for our sheriff's department, as well as businesses. And I think it would be something that we should endorse and support as well. And that's all I had. Oh, and I would like to congratulate Commissioner Ronan. Welcome. We're excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Balbone. And I just wanted to let you know there's some feedback on your microphone when you're speaking.
Okay.
Yeah. Commissioner Roche?
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I just want to first start by just thanking Commissioner Hallman. Oh, Commissioner Hallman for facilitating that incredible event with Connie Rice. That was incredibly inspiring. Thank you so much to staff for coordinating that and launching that. I've so much I need to process with this group, but we will do that another time. I would like to welcome Commissioner Roman. I look forward to working with you and getting to know you. I also would like to state that I, for record, would like to be the liaison, or a liaison, I should say, to the Social Justice Task Force. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to name that or if I need to wait to a later point of the agenda, but I'm just going to put that out there. Aside from that, I have notes that I need to pull up. Announcements, just a quick reminder. I'm sure some of you have received the invitation to register for Dr. Robin DeAngelo's training for city officials, which will be held on July 28th from 6 to 7:30. If you have not registered, I encourage you to. She wrote the book of New York's bestseller, White Fragility, and she's coming out with a new book. So I look forward to seeing all of you during that training. Yeah, I was able to attend quite a few city council subcommittees on homelessness for the city of West Hollywood. And I will, as I continue to attend these meetings and gather information, I will report back on them. I know I can't assign myself as a liaison, but that's also some of the work that I'm doing on the side. And I did have an opportunity to attend a community listening session regarding mental health and homelessness response from law enforcement, which was a COC or commission, Civilian Oversight Commission meeting that was held on June 14th. Very insightful. And I think very much in alignment with the work we're trying to do in the city. So if you want details about that particular meeting, I'm happy to chat with you offline. And I think that's everything for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Roche. So there is an actual time period when we do all of the appointments for all of the subcommittees and everything throughout the year. Kristen, is that coming up on anytime soon? I forget which month that's in.
To be honest, normally we would have done it by now, but there were so many changes with appointments. I was waiting till all of you are settled. So hopefully next meeting, I've got a note to bring that to select all the liaisons across the boards and commissions.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I believe Commissioner Berger had his hand up first.
Yes, I'm really appreciative of Lisa Slaughter coming from Cookies. That's outstanding that you come and present your part and communicate with us and our sheriffs. I think it's a real good step. I also attended some subcommittees, homeless subcommittees, the Chamber of Commerce meeting with about homeless and safety, the COC meetings, the civilian oversight meetings. I usually attend those, and if anybody wants notes or anything from that, you can email me through our liaison, Kristen Cook.
Thank you, Vice Chair Berger. Commissioner Hallman.
Thank you. First, I also would like to welcome Commissioner Roman. Welcome. And Commissioner Roche, thank you for the compliments. Greatly appreciated. It was truly an honor speaking with Ms. Rice. During one of my earlier meetings, I asked a question of Lieutenant Mulder that dealt with what could be the start of a possible homeless encampment on Formosa, just south of Romaine, which would be Los Angeles. Shortly thereafter, someone tagged me on my personal Facebook page, which is fine. I understand, as a commissioner, these things are going to happen. I don't feel that my question and concern were understood. Do I wish to see homeless encampments removed off the street? Absolutely, because I do not want to see anyone live like that. No one deserves to live like that. I am concerned about the conditions that individuals are living in. And that's why I would like to see if we are working with the LAPD to help these individuals. With that being said, as a neighborhood watch captain, Vice Chair Berger was always very kind to meet with me. He would come, we would have meetings, we would discuss what we were experiencing in my neighborhood. And I too want to make myself available to any West Hollywood residents or anyone that is viewing our meeting. If they would like to meet with me, speak with me on the phone, my door is open. I would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments or liaison reports? Commissioner Oliver? You're on mute, Robert.
There we go. Just want to say a quick thank you to Commissioner Hallman for leading that discussion. It was definitely extremely insightful and informative. And then a quick welcome to Commissioner Roman. Glad to have you.
Okay. If there are no other reports, we will move on to the unfinished business 10A homeless initiative update.
And we are fortunate to have our strategic initiatives division staff with us here tonight. So I will kick it over to Corey Plank and team.
Great. Thank you, Kristen. And before I start, I just want to acknowledge Mayor Pro Tem Meister is on the call and is one of the members of the Council Subcommittee on Homelessness. And happy to have you here tonight too. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. I'm Corey Plank. I'm the manager of the City's Strategic Initiatives Division, which oversees the city's homeless initiative, as well as our city efforts to address poverty and aging. And tonight I am joined by Katie Egan from the Social Services Division and Elizabeth Anderson from Strategic Initiatives to present to you some highlights from the 2021 progress update on the West Hollywood 5-year plan to address homelessness. The plan is a strategic framework that helps guide and focus the West Hollywood Homeless Initiative, which was established in 2016. And it's important to note that while the initiative was created 5 years ago, the city's been addressing issues related to housing affordability, housing insecurity, and homelessness for more than 3 decades. We have a lot to cover tonight. There's a lot happening, and so we'll be happy to take questions following the presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth Anderson to begin the presentation.
Thanks so much, Corey. And I'll take a moment here while Janet shares screen and brings our PowerPoint slide deck up. Thank you, Janet. All right, great. Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Public Safety Commissioners and members of the public, as well as Councilmember Meister. We're glad to be here to provide a primer on the homeless initiative and 5-year plan, and then we'll be jumping into the 2021 progress updates. Our goal today is to give you a big picture understanding of how the city and its external partners are addressing homelessness, and we hope you'll be proud of the work going on across the community and the city. This will deepen your insights into how all of these puzzle pieces fit together to create forward momentum for the city's homeless initiative. Next slide. At its core, the West Hollywood Homeless Initiative is a multidisciplinary, multi-agency collaborative response to address homelessness. It's beyond just the city by itself because the causes and solutions to the issue are so complex. Through this coordination, the initiative is able to advance the bulleted concepts you can read on the slide. Another important part of the initiative, it's really the why we invest time and effort into a local strategy, is because it provides a framework to organize complicated work and breaks down the steps to reach our goals. Creating the initiative in 2016 was through council leadership and community support. This group also shaped the 5-year plan to address homelessness in our community to carry the city forward through 2023. To keep track of the city's progress, we post the 5-year plan and progress reports at weho.org/homeless. This is the webpage you can send interested community members to if they're asking about services or how they can help be part of the solutions to end homelessness here in West Hollywood and around the region. Next slide. Back just one slide. Perfect. So next, let's look at the 5-year plan. The main question is, if we reach our 7 goals, what is going to be different at the end of 2023? And here's the answer. The West Hollywood community will be even better at supporting and responding to persons experiencing homelessness. We will have created more homeless service locations and housing choices in the city. We will have prevented homelessness among residents, and we'll have built stronger partnerships to support regional and local solutions to homelessness. Next, we'll take a look at the progress in the past year to reach each of these goals. Next slide. So first up, what does it look like when the community gets even better at supporting and responding to persons experiencing homelessness? So here are examples from the past year, and I'll expand on the starred items. The City Council Subcommittee on Homelessness began meeting monthly, showing the interest and commitment of elected officials in creating space to collaborate directly with staff to study solutions to addressing homelessness and create recommendations for their council colleagues on the path forward. On the next star, hopefully you've seen the real change donation parking meters around West Hollywood. Even with the pedestrian and car traffic down over the past year, the community donated $325 in the meters, which adds to the already $1,000 collected, along with the $20,000 that came from City Council's decisions to share parking meter revenue collected in prior holiday seasons. These funds come through the parking division and are then put to use to buy hygiene supplies that are given to people experiencing homelessness by our contracted agencies and the Sheriff's Met team. Here, I'll also highlight the city's parking services division, which is getting even better at responding effectively to people experiencing homelessness. When the parking enforcement team has a hunch that a person getting a parking ticket is living in their car, the team requests a visit by the city's homeless outreach providers. The goal is to connect the person to services and prevent the car from being towed. Another big picture activity started this year by the Social Services Division with direction from City Council is the study of social service needs of West Hollywood community members of color. This directly links to the homeless initiative because people of color disproportionately experience homelessness. The findings from this study will be incorporated into the next social services request for proposals, which is coming up just next year. Next slide.
Apologies, it's getting stuck.
Sorry. I'll start talking. Okay. So I just mentioned a few highlights so far, and there's more to come in this presentation. But right now, we're actually going to create an opportunity for attendees at this meeting to be part of the next progress update by taking a moment to reinforce how to convey respect to people experiencing homelessness through the words that you use. So we'll tune in on a short clip from the city's partner, United Way, and their Everyone In grassroots campaign to end homelessness. So I'll look to Janet to cue the link through the writing on the left.
Hi, I'm Chelsea, the Westside Field Organizer with the Everyone In campaign. Let's get started. We know that in addition to framing our message, we really have to be conscientious about the language that we use when it comes to having conversations around homelessness. And that's because words matter. We know that a lot of the language that we're used to hearing in the context of even compassionate conversations or coming from people who are advocating for solutions, that language has been really dehumanizing. And it often portrays homelessness as a character defect or a permanent condition and can talk about our unhoused neighbors as strangers or other. Because our language has the power to influence hearts and minds, we really, really want to think about how we can evolve our language to be more humanizing, more empathetic, and to really help think about the way that we see our unhoused neighbors as just that, neighbors, not strangers. So I offer you this. Instead of calling people who are unhoused the homeless, talk about the unhoused or people who are experiencing homelessness. Instead of saying drug addicts, talk about people with substance use disorders. Now, there's a lot more that we can talk about when it comes to messaging, so I encourage you to stick with us, watch the rest of the series, or go online to everyoneinla.org/events and visit our events calendar where you'll find workshops specifically on messaging, and I hope you'll join us there.
Perfect. So I think this training video is especially energizing because it really shows how something as simple as word choice can be a powerful way to contribute to the momentum that we have as a city and a community at getting even better at supporting and responding to the crisis of homelessness and the needs of people experiencing homelessness. So next I'll turn to my colleague, Katie Egan from the Social Services Division for the next part of the presentation. Next slide.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So continuing on the theme of strengthening the community's ability to support and respond to homelessness, this slide provides an overview of homeless services in the city of West Hollywood. Funding from the city empowers local nonprofit organizations to provide street outreach, case management, and housing retention services for homeless community members. Agency staff work directly with people experiencing homelessness to connect them to shelter, substance abuse treatment, healthcare, mental health services, and housing opportunities. The outreach teams also provide assistance in the form of food, hygiene kits, blankets, socks, and other emergency supplies. Outreach services are provided in the city 7 days a week, including some early morning, night, and weekend hours. Outreach teams also follow up on calls to the West Hollywood Homeless Concern Line when community members call, sharing information about people who need support. To help community members who are experiencing homelessness, the outreach teams must be highly collaborative. Outreach staff work directly on the streets of West Hollywood and with local business owners, housed and unhoused community members, regional partners, and community services such as the Los Angeles County Library and Sheriff's Department to engage and assess individuals in need of service. Agency staff work to build relationships with our unhoused neighbors and meet on a weekly basis with other partner organizations to case conference and collaborate on how to best serve each person's specific needs. In addition, the city's quarterly homeless collaborative meetings provide a space for outreach staff to connect regularly and discuss resources. These collaborative efforts keep the city's service providers in close contact, helping to ensure that clients can be easily connected to the entire range of social services provided by the City of West Hollywood. In addition, many of West Hollywood's contracted agency partners provide targeted services to people experiencing homelessness with unique needs, including youth, people who are LGBT, those with mental health or substance abuse conditions, and individuals who are at risk of or currently living with HIV. Two of the primary homeless services agencies contracted with the city are Essentia and Step Up on Second. Both organizations provide comprehensive services for homeless community members, including street outreach, case management, and housing retention services. Essentia is also the city's shelter provider, while Step Up on Second provides programs and services with a specific focus on individuals experiencing long-term homelessness, substance use, and mental health conditions. HousingWorks' mobile integrated services team also does street-based outreach with chronically homeless individuals and assists them in applying for, locating, and moving into permanent supportive housing. Once placed, HousingWorks staff continue to work with those individuals to ensure they receive the support necessary to remain housed. Multiple teams from the LA LGBT Center support community members who are experiencing homelessness as well, including the Transgender Economic Empowerment Project, the Mental Health Services Program, and Youth Services, which provide shelter beds to young people experiencing homelessness aged 18 to 24. Additional services for trans, gender nonconforming, and intersex people are provided by the Trans Latina Coalition and Trans Can Work. Trans Latina's case managers connect clients to a wide variety of services, including temporary and permanent housing and job training, while Trans Can Work provides career services for gender diverse people who are both housed and unhoused. For individuals struggling with substance use, Tarzana Treatment Center provides inpatient medical detox services and inpatient treatment. Friends Research Institute also supports substance use treatment for gay and bisexual men, including those who are unhoused. In addition, their outreach team is on the street regularly to provide HIV and AIDS education to gay, bisexual, and transgender people. APLA Health is also engaging homeless community members living with or at risk of HIV through weekly outreach. Their HIV specialist connects individuals on the street with a wide range of services, including benefits advocacy and case management. Lastly, city funds also support the West Hollywood Sheriff's Mental Evaluation Team, which I know you are all very familiar with. The MET unit coordinates with the city's strategic initiatives and social services divisions, as well as city contracted agencies like Step Up, Essentia, and the LA LGBT Center to connect people to homeless services. Additionally, MET helps prevent homelessness among West Hollywood's older adult residents who are impacted by mental health symptoms or cognitive decline due to dementia. Next slide. So I'm sure the question that everyone is wondering now is, what results are we seeing from all of these services? This slide speaks to the effective response of West Hollywood's community of contracted agencies with 4 key indicators that focus on preventing and ending homelessness. Homeless prevention through rental assistance, which was greatly expanded by City Council during the COVID-19 pandemic, has reached 1,354 households since October 2016. I'll go over some of those numbers in more detail in just a few minutes. In that same time period, 378 people, both housed and unhoused, accessed substance use treatment services through the city's providers. Both Essentia and the LA LGBT Center have provided West Hollywood community members experiencing homelessness with over 25,000 total nights in shelter. And 161 individuals have been placed into housing, with 78 of those placements happening during the pandemic. For some additional context, the West Hollywood homeless population was estimated to be around 112 people in the official homeless count conducted by the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority in January 2020. While we understand West Hollywood's homeless population to be fluid due to the city's unique boundaries and the fact that more people in the Los Angeles region are falling into homelessness every day, that the fact that city-funded agencies were able to house 161 individuals in that time period is significant, especially given the impacts of the pandemic, which greatly altered every aspect of service delivery, from outreach to case management and housing placement. All of these services and many more contribute to successfully ending the experience of homelessness for West Hollywood community members and keeping existing residents in their homes. Next slide, please. We know that a big part of ending homelessness is creating more opportunities to connect with services and places to live. This slide provides some additional details regarding how the city is seeking to achieve that goal. The city recently selected a consultant to conduct a feasibility study of locations within city limits to place a homeless service access center, along with interim housing and permanent supportive housing. The consultant will receive guidance from multiple city departments, contracted homeless service agencies, City Council, commissions, boards, the Chamber of Commerce, and the broader community to produce a set of recommendations on how to move these major community assets forward. In addition, one of the city's contracted agency partners, Tarzana Treatment Center, completed an MOU with the West Hollywood Sheriff Station this year to provide opportunities for those charged with issues related to substance use to access treatment programs. The Jail In Reach program provides a needed service for housed and unhoused community members alike, creating a pathway for diversion from the criminal justice system into needed treatment. We also want to acknowledge the great work of the Rent Stabilization and Housing Division for promoting the Lease Up program, an initiative that partners with property owners and managers to connect people experiencing homelessness with housing vacancies and to help people at risk of homelessness to stay housed. Rent Stabilization and Housing has also been overseeing the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which City Council has utilized to allocate over $11 million toward building 90 units of affordable housing this last year. Next slide, please. Next, we'll look at the work to prevent residents from becoming homeless in the first place. This effort is one of the most critical, locally and for the region, because keeping people in housing is essential to ending the homeless crisis. There are several specific ways the city has worked on prevention, especially during the pandemic. First, the city provided emergency funding for additional nutrition and rental assistance. 70,000 meals and packaged groceries were provided to community members who needed them, and contracts with two of our nonprofit partners, NCJW and Alliance for Housing and Healing, were increased to offer more rental assistance. More than 1.5 million in city funds were used to provide rental support to 600 households to keep people housed. That means that half of the total rental assistance provided by the city over the past 5 years was allocated in the past year alone. The city also worked to connect people with county and state rental assistance resources. This financial support helped vulnerable community members pay rent and stay housed. In addition to providing financial support, educating community members about laws and emergency orders created in response to COVID-19 has also been vital to keeping people in their homes. The city's Rent Stabilization and Housing Division, in partnership with the Communications Department, educated residents about the state law that requires third-party checks to be accepted for rent payment, as this is how the city's programs through NCJW and Alliance for Housing and Healing operate. Both the Rent Stabilization and Housing Division and the Communications Department also disseminated information that helped people understand the eviction moratoriums that have been in place due to COVID-19. Finally, the city also expanded the legal services at Betzetic to include a specialized eviction prevention and defense program to residents to defend against illegal evictions during the pandemic. And our colleagues in recreation made weekly wellness calls to over 150 older adult recreation patrons throughout the pandemic to check in, get them linked to resources, and make sure they were doing okay. And with that, I will pass it back over to Elizabeth.
Thanks, Kate. Next slide. So the last element we'll look at is how the city continues to cultivate stronger partnerships and support regional and local solutions to homelessness. As you're probably very aware, the LA County Homeless Initiative and the Measure H sales tax revenue funds regional homeless services. West Hollywood has worked to get some of these county funds for our local priorities. And you can see from this list that the county money has supported our rental assistance program and the purchase of PPE. With these funds, our team member Jenny single-handedly purchased thousands of masks and hand sanitizers, got these items to the city's outreach teams who delivered them to unhoused community members. The city also utilized county funds to pay for the consulting services that will be determining where we should create sites for homeless services and more housing choices here in the city limits. Lastly, this past year, the mayor and city council pledged its support for the Mayors for Guaranteed Income national initiative and the development of a local pilot that will support housing retention and homeless prevention. And there's more to come on this as the program is developed later this year. Next slide. So in closing, hopefully this presentation gives you highlights on the progress this year that are happening across the community and the city. And we hope to get that you get the feeling that West Hollywood really is committed to making short and long-term solutions to end homelessness and make them happen here. And the information on this slide provides you guidance on how to learn more and stay connected with the work. We like to repeat the web address multiple times and hope that you'll share it broadly with the community, weho.org/homeless. And you can help people connect and continue to learn more as the community advances the work within the West Hollywood Homeless Initiative and the 5-year plan. Thanks so much for your time, and we welcome your thoughts and questions.
Commissioner Roche.
Thank you for the presentation. In one of those last slides, you mentioned state law that third-party checks were accepted. I guess my question is it permanent? I know it's a state law, but does that mean that there's a time frame in terms of landlords being able to accept third-party checks because it is a pandemic, because of the circumstance? Or can we expect this as an ongoing long-term benefit despite the pandemic?
So I think I presented that point. I will say, Corey, feel free to, or Elizabeth, feel free to jump in if you know the answer. I would assume that would at least be in place while the eviction moratorium is in place. But I would have to follow up with the folks at rent stabilization in order to confirm whether that's more long-term.
And there are advocacy efforts to make that something that would be extended beyond the emergency orders in the pandemic.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions? Commissioner Oliver? You're on mute.
Every time. There we go. Thanks for the presentation. I did have some questions. Just first, like you mentioned, the consultant. Could you tell us some like positive outcomes that consultant has had, or some other like outcomes in other cities or in areas? Like give us an idea of who that is coming up with the solutions for West Hollywood. And then also, you mentioned some sites, like points of service. Where would those be? What types of services? Permanent, temporary, drive-by, like just kind of some details on that.
Thank you, Commissioner Oliver. It's good to see you. So the answer to where and how is yes to all of that. Yes, we want to look at some temporary opportunities, some interim opportunities while we go through this feasibility study to look for a more permanent facility that would, our hope, serve 3 different purposes that would provide a service center that would provide both, and then would provide both interim and permanent supportive housing. But we always are looking for opportunities to, further connect our agencies with people who are experiencing homelessness or who are at risk of homelessness. We do outreach program. We've been on hold at the library. We have a physical space that allowed the providers to have a quiet, private place to do intakes and have conversations about housing plans and so forth. We're kind of always checking in with the library to see when we can restart that program. But yes, we'll be looking for a number of programs that are some that will be interim in nature, just while we're going through this process. And in terms of the consultant team that was chosen was Abby Arnold and associates, her team that she put together that have finance for affordable housing developments expertise, some architecture expertise, community engagement and outreach expertise. They have conducted and created homeless plans for many of the cities within LA County, including ours. And they'll be working with us to begin the process of community engagement around siting a facility that would enable us to have all of those things, the service and the interim and permanent housing. So that contract was approved by council at the June 21st meeting. We had our first meeting with the team on June 22nd. And we'll continue to move forward with those efforts, and all the commissions, I think, as Elizabeth or Katie noted, will be part of that outreach as well.
Commissioner Balbone?
I just want to check. Can you hear me on my mic?
Yes.
Okay. So much good work, and it's clear that a lot of the services that you've put in place have accelerated over time, which I think was one of the goals. One that I was noting that looked like it took a downturn, and I'm curious if it has anything to do with COVID, is the substance use treatment and the residential placements. That dropped dramatically, it looked like, from 16 to 19 and then to 19 to 22. Is there anything we could do there? Is it concerning? Is it for another reason?
So I am unsure of why that might be the case, but I'm happy to follow up with our team in social services to see if we can take a closer look at those numbers.
Thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions? Commissioner Roche?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to learn, just if possible, a little bit more about the Path Lease Up program. This is the first time I'm ever hearing about it. I don't know if you wouldn't mind taking a minute to kind of give me an idea and understanding of what that program is. I know it's between the landlords and the tenants, but if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, of course. So you can actually find more information on their website. It's called leaseupla.org. And it is, as you mentioned, run by Path, who is a former contracted agency partner with the City of West Hollywood, and we still collaborate with them quite often. And what the program is they do outreach to property owners and landlords in order to essentially create a system that more seamlessly connects people who have housing vacancies to people who are in search of affordable housing. So what our rent stabilization team has done is help to get the word out among our landlord population, folks who have properties in West Hollywood, in order to promote the program, let them know that this is a service that is available, so that when people do have vacancies, they spend less time looking for folks to fill those vacancies, and they can easily connect to someone who is in need of housing.
So are there benefits to the landlord to participate in this program, or is it more of just another avenue to get to occupy their vacant unit?
I believe that the benefits are specifically the Path's connection to people who are unit ready. So it's really about accelerating the timeline. But I see that Corey's also unmuting her mic, so feel free to jump in.
So there are, through this program and other programs that are, there's HIP, it's the Homeless Incentive Program, that provides resources to landlords to help them maybe make some minor renovations to their property that would help them meet the inspection criteria for some of the housing resources. And I think as PATH program does, and as the HIP and other programs do, it gives the landlord someone to call if there's an issue. And that's, I think, a great benefit. Landlords don't have that for folks who just might come in as market rate tenants. If somebody's having issues, there's a case manager or an agency they can call. And then I think the other thing is knowing that these are subsidized, you know, that people have either housing vouchers or other resources, subsidies that will help them. So there's a little bit more, hopefully a little bit more security for the landlords in terms of the actual rental payment as well. So we try to make sure that landlords are aware of all of the benefits that are available to them from any number of programs to encourage their participation in all of these programs.
Commissioner Berger, I believe you were next.
Thank you guys for the presentation. I have some questions, and I didn't see this in the report or the reports that I've been looking at. Is when somebody gets housed or you make contact with a person, is there any kind of what kind of follow-up? Is there a close follow-up with caseworkers to stay with this person and work with them a lot? Because I think that a lot of it is we're going to lose a lot of those people back out to homelessness again. Also, Dr. Sharon from the Department of Mental Health mentioned that he has a real big shortage of clinicians, which I think are sort of kind of hand in hand. Can you speak to that? Instead of giving people a handout, are we giving them a hand up? Is there accountability of what kind of things that they can do? Do they have to work to keep their homeless, their housing or things like that? That's kind of my interest right now. I think it's a really big component.
Yeah, definitely. Vice Chair Berger, I think you make an excellent point. In terms of retention services, many of our homeless service providers provide case management even after someone is placed into housing. So Essentia, Step Up on Second, both provide housing retention services, as does our partner Housing Works. They are actually contracted to provide intensive case management for 27 highly vulnerable, formerly homeless community members who are West Hollywood community members. So the goal of those services in particular is to make sure that even when someone is placed into housing, they're not just left to their own, left alone after that point. They still continue to get services and support, whether that's mental health support or rental subsidies, anything. Everyone's case is pretty unique and specific, but we definitely emphasize those services in order to make sure that people don't fall out of housing once they have left homelessness and left the streets. And then in terms of what folks need to do in order to maintain that housing, again, it's kind of case by case and unique to each individual person. But there are programs where folks maybe are only paying a portion of their rent, and then gradually over time, they will take on the full rent, things like that, working requirements. It all just depends on the program and the placement and the specific person and their needs and level of functionality. But yeah, I would say all of those things are definitely happening, and happy to provide more detail if you'd like.
Because you mentioned Housing Works, I went into the waiting area of Housing Works, and the people in there thought I was another homeless, and the homeless people were waiting for their interview. And I could hear them back there getting their interview. And they were telling me a totally different story. They says, I'm never going to get off of the drugs. And all of these things. And then as soon as they got back in front of the person who determines if they keep getting their check or whatever it is, they completely changed. They're really, so that's just a concern. My next question is, I don't know if it was in which report I read it in. I don't know. It was, but it was a recent one where you had 1,097 bed nights, I believe it was, but you had sheltered 17 adults and 7 kids over, it was kind of a long period of time. Are we really only sheltering? Is that how many that we really are only getting people to go into a shelter?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
I think that you listed 1,097 bed nights, and I'm guessing that it was by 17 adults and 7 kids that occupied those 1,097 bed nights. Is that correct?
I'm unsure of the specific numbers that you're referencing or which report that's from. I'm happy to go back and take a look.
Does that basically sound kind of correct, though? I might not have the numbers correct. You'd have a really big number of bed nights and only a small amount of people that were occupying those beds.
I would have to go back and confirm the numbers. Corey, did you want to jump in?
I don't know that that's accurate for anything recent. In previous contract cycles, when we had our contract with PATH, we did have people who stayed in shelter for a longer period of time than shelter is intended. So there were, less beds to access per our contract. But I don't know that we would have to look at the program reports to see if that's for a year's time.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was something like a year. That's okay. My next question is, I think that the people that you housed, which was a good job, that was quite a good percentage that you did house. I think that it was something like 58% of those had been involved with either interim housing or housing. And then the rest of the percentage, like 48% or whatever, were living on the streets. Is there some kind of a correlation between those that get housing like that and their success maybe to those that do accept interim housing?
So we definitely look at shelter as a pathway to housing. Once you access the shelter, either at Essentia or the LGBT Youth Center, you have access to a wide range of services and case management that is easily accessible just by the fact that you are physically present in the building. So definitely we see that as a way to facilitate a transition into more long-term housing rather than someone who may be just coming right off the street into housing. I can't say definitively. I would think we'd have to dig a little deeper on the analysis to compare those figures to say if there is a statistically significant difference between those two groups. But definitely we encourage shelter as a form of just getting people into service so that they can work towards their more long-term housing goals.
Okay. Last question, and I'll be brief. I want to see if there's any kind of an indication or a correlation with our MET teams and the decrease in homeless, because, and maybe Lieutenant Mulder will know the answer to this, the 5150s or the 5585s increased 159% over 5 years. And I'm going to guess that was partly because we had a clinician on the MET team was able to go with the officers or even without the officers sometimes. And they were able to say, okay, that's a 5150. And they could take that patient and take them in. And then there was also a decrease in the homelessness during that period of time. Do you guys see the MET teams impacting and how much on the homelessness?
So, Corey, I heard you.
Well, I think the MET teams have been a tremendous addition to our continuum of service, and having that clinician has been really helpful. They are able to spend more time with some of the community members. Sometimes that is waiting in the emergency departments with them. They also have had a tremendous impact on our house community members, and so prevented homelessness for a number of people as well. So I don't know that we could say they are solely responsible for any decreases in homelessness, but they are certainly an important addition to our continuum of service, and something that has had impact beyond what we even expected when we first created that contract to bring the Met team here to West Hollywood. They are a vitally important part of that. There was capacity, and there still is capacity for clinicians who are certified to write 5150 holds within some of our other agencies. But this, that kind of focused, work of the Met team has been a really great addition to our program.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner questions? Okay, great. Thank you so much for the presentation. Anything else to add?
I have one thing, and we had a conversation earlier today with Mayor Pro Tem Meister, and one of the challenges, and we talked a little bit about this, is that inflow into homelessness. That while we were housing more people than ever, it's the rate of people falling into homelessness for the first time. And Mayor Pro Tem, I gave you a wrong number, but it was a lower number. LAHSA estimates that on average, 207 people within LA County exit homelessness every day, but 227 enter homelessness. So I think I told you 7, it's actually 20. That's the gap. So until we can kind of start to keep pace with that, which is why, as Katie shared and as we've talked about before, prevention is so vital to our efforts to address homelessness. So that if we can keep people from falling into homelessness in the first place, it's much more cost effective to do that. And it's much better for the person. But I wanted to share that. We had shared that number earlier, and I was wrong. So I wanted to just correct that while you were here, but also just to give the commissioners a sense of kind of the pace at which we're getting people off the street, but the pace at which more people are falling into homelessness. And I just want to thank Elizabeth and Katie too for all their work on the presentation, and thank Janet for helping us with the slides.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for having us.
Thank you. Moving on to 10B, report from the fire department.
Chair, I know Chief Smith is prepared to give the report this evening.
Should we move on to block by block while we wait for Chief Smith?
Chief Delaney, is Chief Smith still with us? I see him on the Zoom. But yes, we could move to block by block and I'll shoot him a quick. Oh wait, there we go.
There he is.
Okay, great.
Sorry about that. I was having some computer snafus. Well, good evening, everybody. Nice to see everybody in the city of West Hollywood. Well, for June, it was quite eventful for June. I know you have the report in front of you, so your firefighters were very busy with a total of 566 responses. And just some perspective on how busy that is within the city of West Hollywood, between all the resources there, it's about 18 a day. So we're a little bit above average for what we historically are. And we did have a few more increase in fires that we've seen in the past. Nothing really monumental, but just an uptake in what we've seen as fire starts. So it's not alarming. It's just, as we know that we get into our summer months and people begin to move around, there's more hazards or challenges that come along with that. I can say organizationally wise, your fire department is doing very well. Your fire family is doing well. We have no reported COVID cases where people are dramatically sick. Of those that have been vaccinated, those that have got sick were not vaccinated. So our health programs management is on top of that, also with our county doctors that are assigned to the fire organization. And so we're keeping a track and on point with our health and welfare of our people. Just looking into going into this summer. We do have some significant risk. We are sending people throughout the state of California right now, and we've also sent people out of state to fight wildland fires. Remember that your organization is very robust, has a lot of highly skilled people, so they tap into those talents that we have to meet the national need or the local need for wildland firefighting or any type of all risk response. So right now, as we're launching, if you will, into fire season, we are sending people out to help with those wildland fires that are going on throughout the state and out of state once again. We've had a series of wildland fires throughout the county. It's keeping us busy. We've had a lot of initial attack fires throughout the county. And as you can see, based upon the warmer temperatures and movement throughout the county, that is more challenging. And boy, I'm trying to think of some other good business, but the good business is we're doing really well. Megan was just texting me, and she said she doesn't have anything tonight, so I'm going to say it for her. Your Megan is like Denny's 24/7, so she is your pipeline or your network to the Los Angeles County Fire Department, and we're here 100% to support you. Is there any questions for me?
Commissioner Roche?
Yes, Commissioner Roche.
Good evening. I'm curious if there was an increase, if any, of incidents on 4th of July.
Ooh, right out of the chute, I'm going to say it's probably going to be right in line with every other 4th of July, and it may be increased based upon people anxious to get out. And so I will have that data for you next month. But I'd like to say that also with the unsanctioned, if you will, pride that went on in West Hollywood, that your firefighters, I want to mention that, were well supported, well received in the community. And thank you for the extra staffing component that you did to meet that public safety need. I wanted to mention that. And also, I really want to thank the citizens and the city of West Hollywood for the interactions that you have with our firefighters, that when you go up and talk to them or the public does, it means a lot to us. And the interaction we've had been so positive, and it's really good besides you just seeing them, I'll say it funny, driving by in Big Red or parking and eating at the local restaurants or grabbing coffee or something. If you're out and about, please say hi to them and introduce yourself, and please say hi to them because it means a lot to us.
Any other questions? Commissioner Balbone?
Thank you for your report, and I'm glad you're all safe. I had a quick question about the unconscious folks and the EMS transports. It seemed to really spike, and I don't know if that's related to it being June, there being bars back open. And I know sometimes you've explained that unconscious is a catch-all sometimes for a lot of different potential activities, but I'm just curious what you're seeing.
Yeah, so as we know as activity, and you have quite the public interaction setting with all the bars and the nightclubs and all the great things that go on in West Hollywood, that there's those emergencies that, and if we actually polled the last 2 years or 5 years, you'll see spikes, highs and lows throughout. So everything in here isn't jumping out to me, especially being one of those persons that used to be on that paramedic squad. So I don't see anything that really jumps out. But it's as we know, as West Hollywood attracts a lot of people day and night because of what it has to offer. So the emergency responses we go on they're going to be pretty significant. They're going to be very plentiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Berger?
You guys we had Chief Gorbani on back in March, and he mentioned about the when you guys transport mental health patients to an intake facility, receiving facility, that a big bottleneck was that you really couldn't bring them into urgent care or something like that. You had to bring them into like a hospital or something like that. And so at that time, you brought in 31% of them into a hospital. And
Correct.
since then, we got the word, and Kristen Cook forwarded this over to you guys, that I think it was dated in May, that you could now take them to urgent care facilities. Previously, you only had 4% that you could. Have you been able to bring people into urgent care since then? And what has been the impact?
So I don't know on how many we've had that have gone into the urgent care. So within the EMS network within the county, we have approved receiving centers, if you will. And if they become on the receiving center list, we can take them there. So there may be a facility that's closer, but if it's not on we have to give appropriate care. So if there is those urgent care type of facilities that take the mental health component, that may be something that they be able to do. I can 100% find out if there is those services available, because at some point in time, they may not be able to may not get transported by fire, but we do have non-receiving facilities for fire and ambulance, but there may be suggestive locations for them to seek their own medical attention at those places. So I don't have an exact number or how many we've done. I don't know the exact locations and who they are.
Where are your closest urgent care centers? Because Chief Gorbani mentioned that a lot of times you might have to take them clear to Lancaster for one of those facilities, receiving facilities. Where are our closest urgent care centers? And are there enough of them around?
So urgent care centers, if we use that term, we don't transport, we go to approved hospitals that have the services that meets the need for different types of patients, that patient being mental health or pediatric or cardiac care or trauma. I will find that out. I will 100% find that out and get back to you on that. And I'll talk to Kristen and she can distribute the information that we have.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you for the question. That's a great one for me to research. Thank you.
I think recently something that came to us, maybe it was during the COC thing that we did last month, Tori, that they talked about that they just recently opened up a local urgent care for receiving. Kristen, do you remember what that was?
So it was with regard to mental health. So again, if Chief Smith's personnel go to that list of approved receiving centers, and the county has allowed for a certain mental health facility that's not a traditional hospital to accept those types of patients, that location will show up on the approved receiving center list. So I think what Chief Smith can verify for us is, has their list been updated recently in light of the county's change in May, if that makes sense, the broader county, not county fire.
Correct.
Got it.
Yes, COC did make reference to it at one of their meetings in June.
Does anyone else have any questions for fire? Commissioner Roche?
Quick question on your report here. It shows 74 sick persons.
Yes, sick persons.
Yeah, I didn't realize y'all are doctors.
Oh,
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I can. So a person sick, when they don't have, they're just not feeling good. And or that they have different medical issues that isn't directed to one thing, like, that you have, like, you see the categories in there that really looks at that you have abdominal pain, allergic reaction, somebody that has general weakness, and let's just say has flu type symptoms, and they want to be seen by the doctor, and they are adamant that they don't want a family member to drive them, even though they have those capabilities. They just don't feel good, and they'd rather go by ground transport, by ambulance. And they have a bunch of different things that they have a chief complaint about. You can't categorize it one thing. So it's a lot of times it's just they are sick. They're not feeling well. And so that's where that goes in. We don't use it as like, well, we really don't know what it is. We'll just call them sick. No, we do a full, thorough patient assessment on these people. And with the advanced technologies that we have, and also the health programs that are in place to do telemedicine, to talk to a doctor, really can do some diagnosis and clinical intervention in the field, but sometimes people just feel sick and they want to go to the hospital. And so we accommodate that via ground transport.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Any other questions for fire? Okay, thank you so much, Chief Smith, for your presentation tonight.
Also saw that Chief Delaney's on and he's regular there, and we communicate all the time, and he said he didn't have anything to add as well. And so please say hi to him. He's a good guy.
Hi, Chief Delaney.
Hello, good to be here.
Moving on to 10C, report from Block by Block.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. Good evening, commissioners and city staff. Gibson here with the report from June for Santa Monica Sunset and Plummer Park. Uh-oh, what was that? What did I hear? Okay, so let's start with Santa Monica. I won't read all the numbers to you guys because I do that all the time and I know you guys have it in front of your face. So I'll just read some of the bigger numbers. The hospitality assistance, we had 1,748. Business contacts on Santa Monica Boulevard, 4,350. Homeless contacts on Santa Monica Boulevard, 263, with 145 calls for service. On Sunset, we had 167 hospitality assistants, 764 business contacts with 25 homeless contacts, and 3 calls for service, actually. Parks, we had 125 pedestrian assistants, 422 restroom counts, 145 restroom serviced. As far as things that may be happening or not happening in Mid-City that we experience, we don't really receive a lot of calls from Mid-City. We have our staples, our regulars, Starbucks, 7-Eleven, Snatched LA, things of that nature. Mostly all of them are transient related. There was a situation this Monday around Hamburger Mary's, Santa Monica and Switzer, where our guards were headed to Melrose Patrol. Saw 2 individuals arguing. One had a pipe. The other seemed to had flashed a gun. We contacted sheriffs. Sheriffs came out immediately, arrested the individual or took them into custody. The gun happened to turn out to be a BB gun, which was good, which was safer, which is better. So glad about that. Sheriffs have been working very well with us as far as response goes. We had another incident at 7-Eleven next to Karina's Cleaners where the guards were making contact with a transient who got aggressive, spit at them, and we were asked to press charges. Sheriffs came out immediately for that as well, and we pressed charges with that. Also, around the Hudson, we were asked, we got a call for service to go and check on a homeless individual or transient that was on the property. We did that. We were trying to get the transient to relocate possibly. He refused to, stating that there was no signage that he could not be there. Pulled out a pair of scissors. He did not aggressively charge or anything like that, but he did have them. He dropped the scissors, then proceeded to charge the team, but he stopped shortly. So it ended up turning into a situation. We deal with those situations a lot actually, but it ended up being a nonviolent situation. Sheriffs were contacted for that as well. They came out immediately for that as well too. So I do want to commend the sheriff on their response time, definitely during our situations for the last month. Is there any questions on anything?
Commissioner Roche?
Thank you, Shay. I really appreciate your report. Nice seeing you this evening. I have a couple questions. In our May meeting, I was hoping that the reports going forward would kind of give me some data in terms of regions. And I appreciate you speaking about the Mid-City area. I am trying to get an idea of the amount of quote unquote incidences that are happening west, mid, and east. This commission has talked a lot about, the possibility of getting additional ambassadors, security ambassadors on the east side for all the reasons. So I'm just hoping in the future, if we can somehow look at the data broken down in a different way as well. I love these categories, but it would be really helpful to see this data broken down into those regions as well going forward, if you don't mind.
No problem, no problem.
Thank you. And then the other question I had to deal with, how does security ambassadors approach transients when asking them to relocate? How does that kind of conversation go? How are you trained to interact with them in that way? Because I understand, I get their position. They kind of feel like they have access to all spaces in a way, right? Because for whatever reason, but in a safe capacity, could you kind of talk me through a situation so I can have a better understanding of, your safety as well, the security ambassador's safety, and what resources are being offered to them, where are they asked to go? I know they can't stay there, but maybe there's a direction.
Right, there is really no particular direction that we offer them to go, because there is nowhere for us to tell them to go.
Right.
But usually my ambassadors will approach a transient in pairs, safe distance, no hands in their pockets or anything like that. We don't want to make the individual feel like we are a harm or a threat to them. We're basically just here to inform you. We can't make you do anything. So we're here to inform you. But our first course of action is to do a wellness check. We want to make sure that you're okay. Is there anything that we can do to help you in an immediate situation? We will offer to contact them with the service providers. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them are non-receptive to that. So then we're going to the next phase of explaining to them that they are on private property and that we had got a call for service about such. After that, if they're not complying with that, we will try to do a call, which we call a 10-3, which they will call over. So for instance, my lead, if I'm there, for instance, my lead will call over to me. I will perpetrate like I am the sheriff's department so that the transient person can overhear it on the radio. That tends to work most of the time. If that doesn't work, then we'll go into the phase of contacting the sheriff department to either bring the Met team out if this person seems to be 5150, and or contacting the sheriff department so that they can help mitigate the situation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Berger?
This person with the scissors, what time did that occur?
I would have to pull that
Roughly
for you, but I can roughly about 11:30 a.m.
Okay, and your schedule, block by block, I'm looking at your schedule, and there is a one that's listed that you guys have an overnight team on, and it's listed as Santa Monica West End, East End from 9 p.m. till 5:30 a.m.
Yes.
What's the difference between that one and the one that's you have a couple of listings at 5:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 12:30 on the East End and the West End?
So the majority of the daytime hours, we are on the East End unless we're getting calls to the West End. And we also have our Melrose Patrol who goes down there at 1:30. The 9 o'clock team, the 9:30 team that you've seen is mainly the overnight team, which goes down and handles the West End, the clubs, let outs, and those situations like that. The 7:30 team, of course, is the Sunset team.
Yeah, so what I'm looking at is the night teams. How much coverage do we have? We've got them up on Sunset, and then we've got them on by the clubs. That looks to me like on Sunset, you just have it at night.
Right. So at night we have the complete Santa Monica Boulevard covered. So we have a couple of teams on the East End. Most of the teams are on the West End handling the nightlife over there. And again, we have the team up there on Sunset.
Okay, and part of the reason that I'm asking is because this person sounds to me like it was a 5150. This one that had happened. Our Met teams aren't available after 1:30 a.m.
Correct.
And you guys, a lot of the areas you have you're not even on duty in a lot of those areas during the night. So would that have called for, if we could look for an improvement situation? Why didn't you call the Met team, or did they come to show up with this person? And
well,
yeah,
they call. We don't have the Met team's direct number, so we call the station, and then the station will determine if they send the Met team out. So that's what we did. But they ended up sending a regular patrol out, regular deputies out, and they handled the situation.
I'm curious because our dispatch, the Met team monitors that radio, and I'm just curious why wasn't our Met team? That seems kind of an obvious one. I guess we'll have to ask
and perhaps the particular team that was there did not deem it to be a 5150 situation. I did, going over their report, it seemed like that to me, but they may not have seen it that way because they were handling the situation. So they may not have asked for that type of assistance.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I think that we can, like we've discussed before, that the disconnect between getting a Met team there sometimes when, we see these are mental health sort of issues is one of the things that we're trying to work on. And hopefully with the instituting that number that people can call by next summer, that will help mitigate some of these situations, or at least help give us some better insight. I see Commissioner Roman and then Commissioner Hallman. And just so everybody knows, sometimes I don't see that Zoom hand because it lags or it fades into your background. So just wave your real hand and then I'll see that. Commissioner Roman?
Hi, everybody. Hey, Shay, how's it going?
Fantastic. How you doing? And congratulations.
Good. The bikes are looking good. So, and I just want to say, like, I see you guys everywhere. I mean, you cannot go down Santa Monica Boulevard without seeing you guys out, and I love it. I hope that the West Hollywood Police at some point also considers, having foot patrol and bike patrol as well, because I feel like it just helps so much. I mean, you guys are always checking in. I have a shop at the corner of La Cienega and Santa Monica, and it's just like a constant presence and makes us feel safe. So I really thank you guys for what you do. And one of the reasons why I joined the Public Safety Commission is because I just want to come up with solutions and help. And I just want to quickly walk you through like a situation that happened to us. I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before. We had somebody steal a bike from our shop, and we chased him and caught him and got the bike back, and then called the cops, and your guys showed up as well. And then your guys went out to look for him. The cops were, I'm not sure what the cops were doing, but your guys went out and looked for him and found him. And the one little boo-boo that happened was your guys came back to my shop to tell me that they had found him. So I had said, did you let the cops know where he is? And they said, oh, so then we called the cops to let them know. And we were explaining to the cops, where this person was, and block by block came back, and they literally had no idea. The lady that answered at 911 at West Hollywood didn't know who you guys were. She's like, what do you mean? I said, the security ambassador is block by block. And she's like, I don't know who that is. What is that? And I said, okay, so it was really confusing. And I talked to Mulder about it, and he was like, yeah, I think we need to work on the training there to make sure like everybody knows what to do and who's who in town. So I just, maybe you guys can like set up some training with the people that answer the phones at the West Hollywood police station, and kind of like for your guys to know. I mean, they did a fantastic job. They really always do. But, I think that at that point, your guys should have just called the police right away and told them where this person was. So
absolutely,
by the time the police got out there, he was long gone. But anyway, my point is, like, I think that if your team can work closely with the team at the station, it would help tremendously. And Mulder agrees.
Okay, absolutely. I agree as well. And thank you for highlighting that for me so I can go over and address that with the teams. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
So Commissioner Roman, sort of the disconnect between, we've had quite a few complaints from the public about dispatch, and then so I think the disconnect between people calling in the dispatch is something that Lieutenant Mulder is really well aware of. And so if we can just keep, when things like that happen, if we can just keep reporting those and keeping him in the loop, that would also be really, really great and really helpful. Commissioner Hallman?
Yes, thank you. Shay, great seeing you.
You as well.
I'm curious, your teams now, when they're patrolling, they used to be together in tandem, but now they're together, but they're separate, like on opposite sides of Santa Monica, walking and patrolling or cycling. Was there a reason for that change?
Yes, I'm trying something a little bit different. And I was experimenting with it first on the East End. What I'm trying to do is spread the guys out a little bit so that they're not so engaged with each other, having a conversation versus paying attention and being focused what they should be doing out there. Also, it kind of spreads the love, if you will. We tend to seem to be appear to be a little bit more of everywhere when it's like that. As far as making contact or anything like that, if it's a transient that we are familiar with, that doesn't give us any problem, it's not a problem for them to make the initial contact solo. But if it's one that we are not familiar with, or a new transient that's coming in, or one that we are familiar with that we know gets aggressive, they just simply call over to their partner crosses the street, and then they'll address the situation that way. What I have when I'm doing that, I have our team lead roving. So he's roving, let's take Easton 1 and Easton 2, for instance. The team lead is roving between Easton 1 and Easton 2. So he's always there for extra support as well. But that's what you're seeing right now. So I'm just testing something out. The team seems to like it. It gives them a little bit more, responsibility for themselves. One person can't say, oh, my radio wasn't working, and their partner is answering the radio. So I'm just trying to cut out some things that may be happening internally, and also give a different look to what's going on out there.
Okay, great, thank you. I mean, it seems like a good idea. I applaud you for trying something new. So
thank you.
Any other questions for Block by Block? Okay, thank you so much, Shay, for coming in and giving us this report. And thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on to 10D, the sheriff's report.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you to Chair, Vice Chair, and all commissioners, and Councilmember Meister. And a special welcome to Commissioner Roman and his co-commissioner there. Welcome to the Public Safety Commission. So getting into it, for June of 2021, Part 1 crime was down 14% when compared to last June of 2020. We had 122 incidents of Part 1 crimes this past June, and a year ago was 143. This year to date, Part 1 crimes are down more than 6%, which is real good when you consider last year we had some of the lowest Part 1 crime accounting in the history of the city, or at least as long as we've been keeping those statistics. So we're certainly on the right track with the Part 1 crimes, keeping them down. And the breakdown through the city on the west side, it was Part 1 crimes were up 1.5%. City center was down 51%, and the east side was up 3%. Of course, seeing those tick ups aren't great, but they're small. Although the positive part in this was seeing city center down 51%. We've been having a lot of the crime certainly was up in that part, as you all know, sitting through each month of the Public Safety Commission and hearing us report on Part 1 crimes in City Center, and they've now are down 51%, which is good. We focused some time and energy in that area with patrol and doing special operations there. So we hope that that then trend continues there. And most categories were down. Burglaries were down 56%. However, robberies were up 10%. And grand thefts at bars, if you saw the report, they were they were up a couple, about 3 from last year, but certainly is a concern now that we are opening back up. And a lot of these pickpocket type gangs are coming back out into the area. But we will be doing an operation or 2 or more to address that issue in the very near future. So the west side, the part 1 crime breakdown for the west side, 55% of part 1 crimes occurred on the west side. City center had 18%, and the east side had 27%, is how part 1 crimes broke down across the city. So we continue to do our saturation patrols with our special teams on the regular workday, and then with our special operations, we do at least once a week. And we've been doing some plainclothes operations, looking at our burglary issue, robbery issue, and also the mail theft issue as well. We're doing, and like I said, we're doing more to address the mail theft issue. It's certainly been a problem. We've seen in some cases that the people that are committing these crimes actually have keys to the mailboxes, which is very problematic. We've, and a lot of these buildings, apartment buildings, I've talked to people there. My team has talked to people there. You know, we always recommend video or having cameras there, which a lot of them do, which is helpful, and making sure the building's secure. And also picking up mail as quickly as possible and packages as quickly as possible. It's a shame to have to do that, but right now that is kind of something that people are going to kind of need to do. And we will be addressing that also with future operations as well. WeHo Pride several weekends ago went very well. Fortunately, we had very, very few incidents, which is really important. And I want to thank our public safety director, Kristen Cook, for giving us the flexibility and the resources that weekend to making sure we had enough deputy sheriffs on the street to make sure everybody had a very safe and enjoyable time for Pride weekend here in West Hollywood. With regard to cookies, we are still getting complaints from neighbors in the area about vehicles illegally parked, people smoking marijuana on the streets and causing disturbances. Just about a week and a half ago, I was over in the neighborhood and talked to two people that live there, and they expressed those same concerns. So that is an ongoing issue. Our teams are also doing, we also do as part of our operations we do weekly, we spend time over in that area, and on their regular duties, they're also spending time over there as well. The bike issue was brought up about having deputies on bikes, and we are definitely going to do that. Our teams are putting together what bikes we have and making sure they're in proper condition right now. So we'll be hopefully fielding some deputies out on bikes in the next several weeks. And I know Commissioner Roman in the past has been very supportive about that and offered help for us, and we really appreciate that. But yeah, we'll be doing that real soon. Also, as you may know, that the Sheriff's Department City have entered into a MOU with the Center for Policing Equity. It's all signed. It's returned to the Center for Policing Equity, and we're just waiting for the next step to begin that study of West Hollywood Sheriff Station. So we're happy about that, that's moving forward, and hopefully we'll move forward quickly. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does anyone have questions for Lieutenant Mulder? Commissioner Roche? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Balbone. Everybody moved around on my screen.
Thank you, Lieutenant Mulder. I appreciate your report. I have 3 questions. The first one is, it looked like we had vehicle burglaries spike a little bit in May, and then they came back down. Was there anything particular, or is it just that there's more cars out there, more tourists, or did you guys see anything going on in May?
So yeah, they've kind of jumped and gone down a little bit through the year, and we haven't seen any particular pattern like we had seen, over about a year ago, year and a half ago. So we haven't seen that type of pattern now. I think this month we had 14 vehicle burglaries. But haven't seen a particular pattern. So no to that, but that is something else that's on our radar and that our teams are looking at and addressing. Perfect.
I did notice that the pedestrian versus vehicle accidents were pretty high this month. And I don't know if there's anything behind that. I was looking to see, is it one section of town, and it looked, yes, a little Santa Monica, but also Sunset. Is there anything that we should be doing to help people out with this? Is there a trend? It just seemed really high versus other months.
Yeah, I think I think it has something to do or correlates obviously with reopening and more people are out and about and are able to be out and about. I think that has a lot to do with it, and then we might see an increase in those kinds of situations. So that's something that I can I'm sure our traffic folks know about it. They get briefed by the traffic investigators on what's happening out there, but I'll make sure they know about that and kind of keep an eye out for people that are not stopping at crosswalks and red lights and all that kind of stuff. They all can, and speed, all those things contribute to pedestrian accidents or vehicles hitting pedestrians.
Great. And my last question has to do with something I encountered on one of my daily walks. And I can give you the details offline, but it caused me to think about a question, and it had to do with, I found an individual was unclothed and performing acts that were better done in private. And I called that in, and the response that I got was that I needed to press charges. And I will tell you, as a female walking alone in the city, someone performing something like that, I'm going to get as far away as possible from that person. I will call, because it doesn't seem like that's something that should be happening. But it made me think, what are the types of crimes that require a citizen versus something like that, which someone who's unclothed, obviously, and performing lewd acts on the sidewalk? I understand there's times and places where a citizen needs to report the crime, but that one seems like strange to me, that it would require a citizen to report the crime when someone rolling up in a cruiser would see it themselves too. So I didn't know if there's anything that you could help me or anybody else understand about where and when something like that happens. Is there just a response from the officers versus needing a citizen to actually make a charge?
Right, and that's an excellent question, because so a case like that, no matter what, we should always should respond to those kinds of calls to see what's going on. If somebody's in that condition, a lot of times, obviously, it might be a mental health or a substance use disorder issue, or both. But I think what they were talking about in the call, and it shouldn't hinder, it shouldn't decide whether we send a car, whether you're going to prosecute or not, but it's the indecent exposure, not to get in the weeds, is a misdemeanor. And with a misdemeanor crime, we can't be a victim of a misdemeanor crime, law enforcement, but a civilian then who is the victim would have to sign a private person arrest if we're going to arrest them for like an indecent exposure. That doesn't mean that we can't go and act and address the situation if obviously if the person is having a mental health breakdown or is drunk or high. We can take other action to for that kind of a situation without having somebody to sign a private person's arrest. But we always respond in those cases. I mean, they did have somebody respond, correct?
Well, I did not stay. I did wait at the location where I told them I would be for a period of time, and then I had to get on with my day. So I'll give you the details offline, but I was curious just to understand. I know there's rules. For me, it was more about getting that individual help and getting them to stop what they were doing versus whether or not they were taken to jail.
Right.
because that may or may not have been the right place for them. But the sidewalk definitely was not the right place for them. So, okay, that's really helpful. Thank you.
And just a couple more things on that is you definitely did the right thing to not get involved and to stay away because you don't want to get hurt. You know, you don't know what somebody's going to do that's acting like that. So you absolutely did the right thing. I think with regard to them asking you whether you wanted to prosecute, if you did want to prosecute, then they would have to find you and send a deputy over to contact you to take the information as well. That's another reason for asking that question, to see if you wanted to be contacted to follow up and prosecuting this individual because it was a misdemeanor crime. Or not.
Thank you.
So, Lieutenant Mulder, in this situation, because I was actually, Carrie, I was actually told about this situation the day that it happened. And in this situation, it was near your apartment, correct?
It was actually closer to the Starbucks, so it was pretty far from my place.
Got it. So I guess, so if you're walking down the street and you see that and then you go someplace to feel safe, the dispatcher always asks for your name and your phone number. Couldn't they just have taken her name and phone number and contacted her after they picked up the person? Like I think she was sort of made to feel like she needed to be in the area. And and whenever I call the sheriff's department, someone always asks for my name and phone number, no matter how benign the situation is. And so I think that's another thing maybe that we need to clarify with dispatch, because people are afraid to call the police because they don't want to stick around. They feel unsafe. And this isn't the first instance that we've heard or that any of us have heard personally about people feeling this way when they call.
Yeah, I think something maybe we could be better at kind of explaining why we're asking what we're asking. But anytime somebody calls, we want to get a name and a number just in case we lose connection. We can call you back, get back in touch with you if you don't call us or something happens to the person calling in. And then, of course, as an informant about a crime, that we can have a way of contacting and linking the reporting of the crime to an actual person. Yes, somebody actually did call us and reported this particular crime. But if anytime somebody wants to call in and report something and does not want to provide their name and number, they can do that too and just say they want to remain anonymous, and they can report a crime or something going on. And that's not an issue either. And a lot of times when we ask a bunch of questions. I know sometimes people get frustrated with all the questions we ask, but I always say that, you know, in this business, we respond to life and death situations with little or no information, and then we have to make a life and death decision in like a matter of less than a second. So it's important that we gather as much information as we can. I think we can be better though at explaining why we're kind of getting all this information. And certainly, if somebody calls in reporting something, you don't have to give your name or number. You can report it, and we'll send a car anyways.
So I guess I'm just concerned because she didn't stick around. We don't really know if someone actually reported it or not. And so if her telling them that she wasn't going to stay at the location and she was going to go somewhere else made it not a priority and no one was sent out.
Yeah, I can't speak to this exact situation. I'll have to look into the situation, but usually when people call, we'll send a car out, and that's how it should be. And if there's ever an issue, and I think I've said this a bunch of times, that if there's ever an issue and when you call in to report a crime or whatever issue you're having, and you are not getting somewhere where you'd like to be with somebody coming out to address it, then I was just asked to talk to the watch sergeant or the watch commander who's a lieutenant, and they can maybe help you out better if people run into that kind of an issue.
Got it. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions for Lieutenant Mulder? Commissioner Hallman?
Yes, thank you. Lieutenant Mulder, I'm perplexed. I became neighborhood watch captain in 2016, and there were complaints about dispatch issues that started then from the east side. We are now in 21, and we seem to be having the same issues with dispatch. So how is this situation going to be corrected? Because it doesn't seem to be getting any better. Like, is dispatch a separate entity from our sheriff's department? How are they trained? Like, I find it unfathomable that this person was not familiar with block by block. So what's the solution?
So yeah, it's a very good question. I think specifically with the one issue about not being familiar with block by block, I do know that we just hired someone new on the desk. They're not familiar with West Hollywood area. They do certainly go through a training process, but they might not know everything. So that's our bad. We have to, I think, maybe do better in terms of training people that are on the desk that know as much as possible before they hit the ground running. But I think that might be the issue with this. I'll take a look at the call to see if that was the factor. Certainly everybody on our desk should know who Block by Block is. They usually are more familiar or refer to Block by Block as security ambassadors. We'll make sure that's fixed. And with regard to the other part of your question, like everything we do, when we're working on improving, I think, our desk relations and what we do with our front desk. Whenever we have an issue, we address it with the desk and as a training issue to try to improve service. So yeah, it is a work in progress that we're continuing on. And I know you said from 2016 to today, which is 2021, but it's something definitely we've been working on and will continue to work on.
Any other questions for Sheriff? Commissioner Roman? Oh, you're on mute.
Hi, Lieutenant Mulder.
Hi, Commissioner.
Hi. So my question is, a question I had was with your team over there. It seems to be like a revolving door. Like I never see the same police, and we call the police 3-4 times a week at our store, and I never see the same people coming, and the police are really unfamiliar with the area, probably because they haven't been there for a while, and that's understandable. Is it really a revolving door there? Are the police that are working there for years, or are they just coming in for a few months and then they're getting transferred to another part of LA? Because it's really like it's always somebody different. So what's the deal with the police that work in West Hollywood? Are they there for a while, or is it just like a little bit and then they're moved to some other station?
We have a mixture of people here. Some people have been here one person has been here like over 25 years as a deputy. And then we have a lot of newer folks here that are trainees, new to the station on training. But most of the people that are here do stay anywhere, 2 to 4 or more years. I don't know about your particular experience there, but yeah, we do have people here that stay for years. They don't move out in just several months or even a year oftentimes. But we do have our other area of responsibility, which is the county area. So we have different pods, and when they every so often through the year they rotate and they go on and work in a different area of West Hollywood. So maybe that's why you're kind of seeing different people moving around a bit. Usually the people that come here do stay at least 2 years, if not longer.
Okay. And Commissioner Roman, you'll also see other deputies when we have special events and things like that also, because the sheriff's department is a shared department on the county level. So it's not like you have, like Burbank has its own police officers. And so you see like the same people and the same officers in Burbank all the time. And I would encourage you to get in touch with myself or one of the other commissioners later this week and let us sort of like give you a rundown on public safety issues and things in the city. So at your next meeting, you'll be a little bit more up to speed on how things operate, and then be able to ask more targeted questions. And I apologize that I didn't reach out to you beforehand. I was going to actually make time to do that. Anyone else have any questions? Commissioner Berger?
The way I understood it is the picture I got is the mental health team is in the station right there by dispatch, and they're monitoring all of the calls. And I don't expect you to know the answer to this, but why wouldn't they have jumped on this? I wonder if they were on another call, or are they really not in the station, in the dispatch area, monitoring these calls? This is another one. This is 2 right now in a row. I'm curious on that. The second thing is, I asked this question to an officer, it was probably at least a year ago, because we had a lot of people that are scared to report something. And they should be, because of those shorts. You know, a person on average with a 6 months jail sentence spends 1 day in jail, and they come right back. I've had residents tell me they threaten their life a week later. So you should be afraid. But I asked the question, I said, what if the person discreetly took a video of the situation, and then they showed the officer, so they don't have to be the victim and press charges. They could show the officer, because would that be enough for the officer to say, okay, there's a reasonable reason to go in and we can arrest this person? Is that true? I'm looking for ways that our citizens can safely, without having to be the victim, do something like that and show the officer, there's the guy right over there, and here's the video, you know, time-stamped.
So I'll answer that question first. Yes, so it depends on what kind of crime it is. Between, do you have a felony crime or a misdemeanor crime? And like kind of what I was talking about before, a misdemeanor crime, generally that's not committed in law enforcement's presence. Not to get in the weeds again, but the person who is the victim of that misdemeanor crime has to place the suspect of that crime under a private person's arrest. So that's how, with the law, California state law states. But a felony crime is a little bit different. But we still need a victim to have a crime and arrest somebody for that crime. And it's not that cut and dry all the time. Like if we contact somebody who is under the influence of methamphetamine, which is a misdemeanor, we can still arrest them because that person's under the influence. And really the law looks at it is that we're kind of keeping them, they're safe, keeping that person, bring them to the jail, make sure they sober up and are okay, and then they're released. So it depends on the kind of crime. But generally with most crimes, we need to have a victim. And there are ways that if the victim is concerned about any kind of retaliation, that, we can interview them, obviously out of the sight of the suspect. But in terms of a prosecution or going forward, they will have to participate.
Okay, next question is about the mail thefts. And that was good. Kristen, I don't know if you were involved in that to get that out to City of West Hollywood. Those tips were really good. Did you guys contact the postal person that's in charge of that? 1. 2, there was I've noticed some people, residents had some really good ideas of a workaround until those keys get fixed, with like putting a lock, a certain kind of lock that they could change, and then they lock the main key for the postal person to get, different kinds of things like that. Do you guys have like a list of like workarounds so that they can protect themselves now? And if you can get onto those, because I can give you some people that have had some really good ideas, can you get it out to the neighborhood watch captains? And did you get that message out to the neighborhood watch captains that you just about the mail tips? And the last one is I'd like to see more of that. It really works. We have like the other one that you did, a lot of people don't know, is when somebody is selling something like used, you gave a good idea where they're all welcome to come to the sheriff's station and meet the person if they have something to sell. I think a lot of people don't know that. And I think those kind of tips would be really good to get out to the neighborhood watch captains.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think the more I think we can kind of put out that kind of information out there, tips on how to protect yourself, like you said, if you're selling something on one of the online marketplaces, to maybe meet at a station instead of meeting at your home. And then with regard to the mail theft, if there's information you have about different devices people are using, I think a lot of that has to be in coordination with the postal service. Because obviously they will be accessing these mailboxes, and that has to be done that way. And yes, we are in contact with the postmaster. I know actually the post we had here, we had one of the postmaster for this area here for a briefing a little while ago. So we are in obviously in contact with them, and specifically about this issue. And then to your other question that you posed at the beginning regarding Met. Met is not in the station sitting at dispatch. So Met is out and about, and they monitor their radio in their vehicle. So they hear all the calls that come out, and if the call is not voiced, the deputy and the clinician can also monitor calls that are sent on the computer, which are routine calls. So they're monitoring those and all on the computer and all the voice calls. So when they do hear calls that sound like it may have a mental health component to it, they will just automatically respond. And our process is when we get a call, we send out to deputies. Deputies do the first evaluation, and if they feel that it should be, if Met should respond, then they'll call for a Met team to respond. And when the Met team does respond, they also want deputies there initially, just in case something happens, they'll have some backup initially. And then once they kind of triage the Met team triages the situation and feels that there's no need to have deputies still there, then they'll release the deputies back in the field to continue patrol, and they will handle the situation, which oftentimes will be taking the person for 5150.
They have been already on another call. Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have questions for Lieutenant Mulder? Or Sergeant Lapkin, who's also on the call with us? No? Okay, moving on. Do we have anything further on impacts from cookies that we didn't discuss during Lieutenant Mulder's update on cookies?
Nothing further, Chair.
No. Okay. Anyone else have questions about cookies? Commissioner Oliver?
Yeah, I just wanted to know what the situation is with the city attorney in Los Angeles. Have they decided, whether or not to, issue a nuisance charge or take any further action? I know that our first public comment was, I don't know if it's somebody from Cookies or a lobbyist, but they've listed what the measures they've taken, but I know residents who live on the West Hollywood side, and they say it's getting better, but that it's not a long-term sustainable situation.
But I think certainly it's better than it was before, but there's still concerns from the neighbors that I expressed earlier. And we do have the street closed just south of Melrose on Kings Road. There was an installation of the speed bumps, and there was the change of parking requirements was also done there. So there's been a lot of things to try to mitigate the problems, but at the end of the day, is that a good idea that, well, we just try to keep mitigating problems that are created by a business and leave it that way rather than ending the problem? And so I know there are still issues there, just from what the people that live there are saying. With regard to the city attorney's office, they've been a great partner. The LA City Attorney's Office, they're fantastic, and I know they're working on some things, but I can't get into what that is, and I think that's something that's within their purview.
Any other questions for Lieutenant Mulder? Commissioner Oliver, did that answer your question?
I mean, I definitely, I know we're different cities, so yeah, I have a feeling if this business itself were in the city of West Hollywood, this problem wouldn't be going on, as it stands. That probably additional measures would be taken to address them with the business. But it's definitely something that I think we as a commission need to stay on. I know the sheriff's department's probably had many meetings with City of LA on it, but the way it was described to me was that even with all this private security, it now feels like, in addition to the issues, it feels like they're living in a war zone with private security roaming the neighborhood. So it's definitely something that I would love to follow up with the city attorney's office and see. I know they have a lot of issues, different nuisance issues in the city of LA, in a huge geographic region to deal with, but this one is close to home, so I want to stay on it.
And I do know that the city attorney from LA is working on it, and they'll continue to work on it, from my understanding. And then we at West Hollywood, the sheriff's department, our patrol deputies and our special teams, do additional patrols over there. And we actually have dedicated operations over there as well, to try to provide some additional law enforcement service over there and make people feel safer than they were.
Does anyone else have any questions for Sheriff? Okay, then moving on to reimagining policing, promoting equity, Measure J, and collaboration with the Los Angeles County Sheriff Civilian Oversight Commission. Do we have any input on that?
So I know it's been a long night for everybody since we all started at 6, but bear with me a little bit. At the last meeting, Commissioner Roche asked for a written summary, and the last time we had done that was before Commissioner Roche was appointed. So you do have a written summary in your packets tonight, and we won't go through that bit by bit tonight. Do want to call your attention to 2 items though. On, let me get the date correct. It was mid-June, June 17th, Los Angeles County Superior Court has declared that Measure J, which county voters approved last year to set aside public funds for social services and jail diversion programs, is unconstitutional. So that will still work its way. I would guess that there will be an appeal. And in the ruling from the court, it says that it does not, the current board or any future board, the judge said, could adopt a budget with those spending priorities, but it cannot be forced to. So more to come on that. And, as you all are aware, there are regular community meetings regarding Measure J. So I would anticipate that they being the Measure J committee will speak more about that moving forward. The other item in your packet, just wanted to call your attention to as well, is the city council did pass a resolution in support of an audit of all contracts with LA County Sheriff's Department with regard to the fraud allegations in the city of Compton. So that resolution was sent to the Board of Supervisors, again, asking for the board to contract for an audit of all contract city stations in the county. Lieutenant Mulder already mentioned the data study with the Center for Policing Equity. He and I are meeting with our project manager again on this Thursday. That study will take some time. It'll take probably at least 6+ months, but we will keep you all posted as they start looking at our data and giving us recommendations. And that's all I've got on that item, and happy to answer any questions.
Oh, Commissioner Balbone?
Kristen, the only thing that I wanted to follow up on is what I mentioned regarding the OIG's report, and if there's anything that we can do to, as a city, recognize and support that report. And what it had to do with was 30 different findings where the sheriff had been asked to provide information and had not.
Yeah, Commissioner Balbone, I am familiar with that report. I read it, and I was at that same meeting that I believe that you listened to as well. I know there is a difference of opinion between the OIG and the sheriff's office, and I mean the Sheriff Villanueva's office on the facts of some of that. So I think those two agencies at that level, well above West Hollywood Station, need to work out those issues and in my personal opinion, figure out a way to work together. And so for our standpoint, we're just kind of monitoring, watching to see where that goes from here. But yes, very interested in that, because ideally what the OIG is looking at, the sheriff is assisting with the proper data, and they come together with recommendations that benefit the residents that they serve.
And I'm assuming that that means that we don't have any pending requests for information currently open?
Pending requests from OIG?
No, from the sheriff.
No, we don't have any pending requests that are open. As you all see every month, any type of data that you ask Lieutenant Mulder for, he provides. You also haven't asked for anything that he can't provide either, though. So it's not like you've asked for Lieutenant Mulder's personnel record. You all make requests that are appropriate within your purview, and Lieutenant Mulder provides that within his purview back to the commission.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Roche.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Kristen, for the report. I'm just briefly reading it. So it looks like at this time, CP is assigned a project manager to the city in West Hollywood Station, according to your report. So it looks like the county has signed it, the city of West Hollywood has signed it, the MOU, and now it is sent back to CPE. So now CPE has it and is processing it.
They've actually executed it since I wrote that.
You wrote the report. Okay, so it's now we have a fully executed MOU.
Yes.
Amazing. That took a year. That's awesome.
Yes, we're there.
Yeah, we're there. Great. Yeah. 12 months in. Awesome. So we have a fully executed agreement now, and now we're hoping they're in work. They're working together, but we don't really have any concept as to the length of this process now that they're dumping data and how are we going to stay plugged into their status? And I'm very curious to see if this is going to take another 12 months. And how do we expedite it?
I'll be very honest with you, it probably will.
Okay.
So I spoke with our representative just last week, actually, and asked him that. I'm like, okay, now that we're good to go and you've got your, data stuff set up between how the county is going to give you the data, like how long does this actually take? So he said at least 6 months to assuming that the data dump happens in a way that they can read what they get and all of that. But Lieutenant Mulder has done a lot of work ahead of time, waiting for the MOU to be signed with his data folks, talking to CPE's data folks. So they should be ready to go at this point, because there was a lot of back and forth for a couple months between data folk to data folks. So he said probably 6 to 12 months. You have to remember CPE is doing studies all across the country. It is free, so it's not like we're having a paid consultant. By July 31st, we want XYZ, completed for the city, or you're in breach of contract. So
I did not know that.
Yes, it is a free service.
I had no idea. When the report says hire an independent expert, I thought the whole point of the contract was that there is a dollar amount, but there isn't. This is
right.
This is a service, a free service.
Correct. And
I did not know that.
It helps with, I believe, reducing as much bias as possible, because one could argue that the city's going to pay a consultant that's going to tell the city what it wants to hear.
Understood.
And so they, in my opinion, CPE likes that independence, of not having a financial tie to the cities that they are looking at their law enforcement data.
I see. Okay. I really appreciate that clarity. Thank you.
Of course.
Does anyone else have any questions? Commissioner Berger?
Yes, Lieutenant Mulder, this is what I have been getting. I have got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, 7 different cases that residents have told me about that led them to be suspicious about the billing, and it was mostly centered around the number of vehicles that you send, the number of police that you send, a lot of times in their own three separate single police and three separate vehicles. Why is that done? I know I've asked it. Marcy Norton has asked it. I felt kind of satisfied a while ago, but this continues, and I think it's something that we need to really make sure that people understand. And the question also that I have is, I'd like to know if the sheriff station's decision to send multiple vehicles in response to minor incidents also leads to an increase in billing.
And before Lieutenant Mulder jumps in on the why, why 4 cars are sent versus 1 or whatever, the way it works on the billing side, because that's the part, we see at the city, is if they're on duty, they're on duty. So I don't, the city doesn't get a bill for 1 patrol car responding to Vice Chair Berger's residence. The city gets a bill for the time the deputy is on duty. So the allegation that's out there in Compton is that they were falsifying something, either falsifying a timesheet or a deputy was sitting somewhere and not doing what he or she was supposed to be doing or whatever. But the city's not billed on how busy they are during their shift, where they are during their shifts. They're billed for the time that they're working, if that makes sense. Same with the fire department, whether the fire department sends everybody or they just send a couple people, the time that the fire department is working is how they're, it's not a direct bill, but it's the same kind of idea. We're paying them to be on duty. I'm not saying this very well, no matter what they do during their shift, if that makes sense.
And for the other part of your question, in terms of why do we send, multiple cars, multiple deputies to an incident? So at the sheriff's department, most of our patrol deputies are 1 deputy patrol cars. So oftentimes, if it's a report call that, somebody stole a bike, we're going to send 1 deputy to that. But if it's a call where, was mentioned before, we have a naked individual who's doing things and kind of out of control, we're going to send at least 2 deputies, if not maybe more, to that kind of a situation. And often, or if it's somebody was stabbed, we'll send obviously multiple units to that. And additionally, depending on the type of call, like if somebody was stabbed or a gun call or whatever, the more dangerous of a situation there is, then more deputies will respond, whether they are assigned to the call or not, just to back up your fellow deputy and to make sure there's enough of us there so that we can bring the situation to a peaceful conclusion. So it depends on the situation, and we assign a certain amount of deputies, but if other deputies are in the area and can go assist and they're not doing something else at that moment, rather than just sitting there doing nothing, they go and assist other deputies on their calls. So that's sometimes why. And depending what what kind of call it is, if it's a stolen vehicle, you'll probably see multiple deputy sheriffs there. That's in an innately dangerous situation for law enforcement. So we obviously a lot of deputies will respond to that and other situations that I kind of enumerated.
I understand that, and probably all of our commissioners here, and I don't know how only many people are watching this or will see this. I just wanted to point that out because I think that particular area, because I wondered, and I've had a bunch of other residents, and it makes them suspicious, if you can start to think about a way to get that information to the people. Maybe a policy that you have when you explain to a victim or whatever on that your deputies explain, this is why we had this or whatever. I don't know, but I'm just pointing out something that's out there, and it's probably out there more than we know. Okay, and the second question, Kristen, in your
Commissioner
report,
Berger, wait, if I could just jump in really fast on that point, Commissioner Berger, so we don't lose it. I think that we sort of get into an area of danger if we're perpetuating like fears and conspiracies instead of fact. And I think that as far as like police operations are police operations, right? And I don't think that Lieutenant Mulder or the sheriff's department, I don't think that them announcing, hey, so we're going to send 4 cars to this. I don't think that's a good precedent to set. And I'm not really sure even that that's something that they're going to do. So I think that a deputy, if someone asks a deputy, they can certainly explain it. And then as commissioners, or anybody listening now that you've know about it, we can certainly explain it. But I don't think that spending department time on trying to explain why multiple cars go out to, and like there's a lot of things that we're not going to know as the public that happen in police operations. So I think that just having it, I just think that like now that we all know that information, that I think that we're aware, Lieutenant Mulder's aware, people that are watching are aware, and then if anyone has any questions, you can certainly direct them to Lieutenant Mulder.
Okay, there's 2 of us that have given our opinions on this. So I just wanted to point out that as a weakness. I mean, if we wanted to bring this up as an agendized item so the rest of the people could speak on it, we could, but I just wanted right now to bring that up, that you guys start thinking about that, and that's out there. And the second thing I wanted to bring up is, Kristen, I think it was in the report here, about the CCCA, the California Contract Cities, had a presentation, and you were going to try to get somebody or get that presentation to us about how to read the contracts, with our services, the sheriffs and whatnot. Can you get that to us, or where does that stand?
And I have made that request. It was a presentation that was given to city managers, and I don't have that yet. I don't know if it just doesn't exist anymore because it wasn't recorded or what, but I've sent a couple emails into their executive director about that.
Okay, thank you. If you can keep us abreast on that, thank you.
And again, I just want to say, because I saw the presentation, it was very casual, very informal, so it wasn't kind of like similar to what you saw tonight from the homeless services that had a very professional looking slideshow and things like that. But I'll nudge them again.
Anyone else have any questions on this item before we move on? Okay, great. Moving on to new business, naming request to rename the West Hollywood Library in honor of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So before we get into this, I just want to ask, why is this on our public safety agenda? Because it doesn't really have it, like, it doesn't. Are we asked by council to give input on what the name of the library should be? Is that what we've been asked to do?
So the staff and public facilities commissions were asked and tasked with checking in with other boards and commissions, and public safety was one of them, regarding your thoughts on this. I did speak with Helen Collins today, our facilities manager, and they're not looking for like a definite yes or a definite no, or but they're just kind of looking for thoughts. Also tonight, it should not be a discussion on, it should be the Public Safety Commission library. It's just specifically, what are your thoughts this evening on naming the library? And in addition, if people have thoughts that they'd rather keep to themselves or respond just as individuals, and I'm grabbing that as well. In your staff report, if you look at page 2 of the staff report, there is a naming survey on there. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you have thoughts that you'd rather just be your thoughts, but still share with staff, you can submit those comments through the website that they've set up to get the feedback from the community.
Got it. So I personally, for myself, I feel like that's more of a like, as a member of a community, a personal thing that I should answer as opposed to it being like part of my purview as public safety. So I'm gonna abstain from comments on this one. But Commissioner Oliver.
Wait. Oh, I'm not muted. I would, motion or at least suggest to my fellow commissioners that I'm sure we all have opinions, and I think we should all communicate those to the city personally, but I don't think it's appropriate for, like, I appreciate the desire at democracy, but I don't know if discussing something that is distinctly not under our purview at an official meeting is the appropriate place for that discussion to take place. So perhaps we might consider scratching this agenda item and then individually as residents reach out to city staff with our opinions.
And what I would say, thank you, Commissioner Oliver, is that the agenda item just says, what are your thoughts? But that doesn't have to be answered tonight. So if there's kind of a consensus from the group that you'd rather submit your thoughts individually through the survey, it could be as simple as that, and we could be done with the item, if that makes sense.
Does anyone feel any need to express any public thoughts about this?
I support that recommendation or suggestion.
Okay, anyone else?
I just have a question. Is there anything that we are to go through? Or was there anything accompanying it?
I'm sorry, anything to go through?
Anything to go through in relation to this item? Or is it just an open conversation?
Just the staff report that was provided.
Okay. So nothing more than that staff report?
No, and I did, because I was a little confused myself. So I did get clarification. I'm like, are you asking for a yes or no, or we don't know tonight? And staff said no, they weren't asking for that. They were just advising the commission that this is out there and that there are ways to pass on your comments. And one of those ways is for me to take notes and give that back to staff. And another way is for you all to submit your comments through their survey that they have set up.
Anyone else? Okay, so let's move on to 11B, election of chair and vice chair. Kristen, if I could take the time now to do my exit speech, is that okay? Yeah. So I feel that I have been the chair through this pandemic and since the beginning of time, and I have really enjoyed my time as the chair. I've learned so much. I've really liked working with all of you, and then also with all of our commissioners that are no longer seated with us. I think it's been really great, and I love being part of the collaboration of this community. All that being said, I thought a lot about this item over the past couple of weeks, and there have been so many changes that have happened in our world and in our community in the past year and a half, really big changes. We've had agenda items added, subcommission committees formed, task force formed. A lot of our work right now that we're sort of being asked to do is around reimagining policing and around sort of reimagining what we're doing in our communities. For me, it has been an experience learning about that because I am a white woman from the Midwest who moved to West Hollywood. There are a lot of experiences for people of color that I don't understand and can't understand as a white person. And I have been sort of humbled over this past year because, you know, we were trying to bring groups in, we were trying to talk about reimagining policing. I know what works for me and what I feel comfortable with, but I don't necessarily know what works for other people from other groups. Much in the way that if you ask me to sit on a like all men's advisory board, I would be uncomfortable about talking about men's issues and giving like my perspective. And so for me, I feel that moving forward, we need to consider putting a person of color in charge at public safety. For me, and then it's specifically a person that can speak to the Black experience and speak to those issues as we move forward through reimagining policing and giving that a voice. So I actually nominate Commissioner Hallman for chair.
So can I ask a question of order, please?
Sure.
Isn't it typical that we ask the commissioners for comments before the chair speaks? I just want to make sure that I'm understanding the order of things, because this is kind of how we landed on the elections the last time. And I think we went a little bit out of order when I think that time you nominated yourself. Is that Like, how is this as point of order, Kristen, supposed to work?
There's no formal way to order to have this discussion right now. I would recommend giving everybody, ample time to speak and kind of get your thoughts out before nominations, or, you make a motion and make a second. I would give a moment for everyone to just hear each other.
So I think in the past few years that I've been on this, so this has happened. And then for clarification, last time it was brought to my attention by the city clerk and by Kristen that because of the pandemic, because myself and the vice chair didn't get a full term, that they were giving us the option to extend that instead of nominating new people. And I just happened to say yes to that option. I don't think that happened on all commissions and boards, and Commissioner Berger also said yes to that option. But in the past, we've had multiple people who have made motions for chair and vice chair, and then we've discussed that as a group.
I think it would be good, and this, because of the way that this has happened now 2 times, to give the rest of the commission an opportunity to speak.
No, of course, and everybody does have an opportunity to speak. It's not going to be that someone makes a nomination and then we say second and then they go through. Like I said, there have been multiple nominations and then everyone should have a chance to speak. So that was my personal nomination, and then whoever wants to go forward from there can go forward. Commissioner Oliver?
I second your I don't want to. I'm a little confused on the format, but I would like to second that nomination. That's all I have to say.
Anyone else? Commissioner Roche?
If we're just speaking and not, now I'm confused. I also thought we're all just going to share our input and then go from there. But so I really appreciate your input, Chair Laughlin. I think that's incredibly mindful to have that approach as we move forward in this work. I also really appreciate working with Vice Chair Berger. And he and I have been working together long before I became a commissioner. And I greatly appreciate his commitment to this commission, and the work we've done together it's really viable, and he's a great asset. So if we are in the process of nominating, I would like to nominate Vice Chair Berger, but I also think Commissioner Hallman would be also fantastic at this role. I also think Commissioner Balbone would be fantastic as a co-chair. So I'm going to go ahead and nominate Commissioner Balbone as a vice chair as we continue to have this conversation.
So we do chair first and then vice chair. Yeah.
See, maybe we need to just have a really clear conversation about this process first. Maybe because some of us are new to this process, I don't know, but sorry about that.
Sorry,
I retract that.
I froze for a moment. So chair is first. So you'll go ahead and kind of get through that. There is a motion on the floor. There is a second. So you will need to vote on that motion, and it will either pass or fail, but you can still continue to have discussion before you take that vote. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Let's
so
say that vote fails for whatever reason, then somebody could make a new motion to nominate somebody else. And if it passes, it passes. And then you move on to vice chair, the discussion on vice chair, and someone would need to make a motion.
I see. Okay. All right. So really are we giving each person, or we're just letting those who want to speak?
I think we can let everybody speak if wants to speak, and then vote on the motion.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Balbone?
So I agree with the need to hear voices from all sides on this commission. And I am very pleased with the fact that we've really had a lot of new folks added to this commission. That said, Vice Chair Berger has served this commission well for 6 years and deserves an opportunity to lead it, in my opinion. So I would second the motion from Commissioner Roche.
And before we do a second motion, you all will need to vote on the first motion, if that makes sense. And just to clarify, since I froze for a minute, Commissioner Roche, did you formally motion to nominate Vice Chair Berger as chair?
Yes, sorry. Yes, as chair, correct.
Does anyone else want to speak? No? Okay, so do we go through with the vote on the first motion and then the second motion?
Just to clarify, if the first motion passes, you have a chair. Does that make sense? And so the second motion doesn't happen. I mean, normally we would take a vote on the motion on the floor before making an additional motion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you can only have one motion on the floor at a time. So to Kirsten's point, if this motion fails, then Commissioner Roche would have to then bring forward her motion. It would have to be seconded, and then we would go through that roll call vote.
Thank you.
Okay. So the motion on the floor is to nominate Commissioner Hallman as chair, seconded by Commissioner Oliver. So let's do a roll call vote. Commissioner Balbone.
Nay.
Vice Chair Berger.
Nay.
Commissioner Hallman.
I apologize. It's kind of weird to vote on myself. And, Chair Laughlin, thank you. I'm a little caught off guard here.
I think Commissioner Hallman has the option to abstain, correct? If he's not comfortable voting on.
Yeah, there's always 3 votes, yes, no, or abstain for any of you.
Got it. Abstain.
Chair Laughlin.
Aye.
Commissioner Oliver.
Aye.
Commissioner Roman.
Aye.
And Commissioner Roche.
Abstain.
Okay, so the motion fails. So we have 2 no votes, 2 abstentions, and 3 yes. Since you're a commission of 7, 4 votes passes a motion.
Okay, so then we move on to voting on the second motion on the floor, correct?
Well, there's someone would have to make the motion and it have to be seconded because it was discussed, but we had to wait through the vote of the first motion on the floor.
Got it.
I will make a motion to nominate Vice Chair Berger.
I will second that.
Okay, for a roll call vote, Commissioner Balbone.
Aye.
Vice Chair Berger.
Aye.
Commissioner Hallman.
Aye.
Chair Laughlin.
Nay.
Commissioner Oliver.
Abstain.
Commissioner Roman.
Abstain.
Commissioner Roche.
Aye.
Okay, our yes votes are, and Janet, check me, please. Commissioner Balbone, Vice Chair Berger, Commissioner Hallman, and Commissioner Roche. No vote, Chair Laughlin, and abstentions from Commissioners Oliver and Roman. Okay, so that motion passes. So your chair is current Vice Chair Berger.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So moving on to the nomination of vice chair. There's three people's hands all went up at once. Can everybody put their hands down and we can try that again because I missed it? Okay, so moving to nominate a vice chair. Commissioner Balbone.
I would like to, in the spirit of what you had recommended, Chair Laughlin, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Roche.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Balbone.
Aye.
Vice Chair Berger.
Nay.
Hold on. Commissioner Hallman.
Aye.
Chair Laughlin.
Aye.
Commissioner Oliver.
Aye.
Commissioner Roman.
Abstain.
And Commissioner Roche.
Abstain.
Can I bring up something we didn't get to discuss? I would like to say something about why I said that, not nay. Can we discuss it for a second?
Let me just report the results and then
Okay.
Just to make sure for the record, I've got this correct. So the yes votes were Commissioner Balbone, Commissioner Hallman, Chair Laughlin, and Commissioner Oliver. No vote from Vice Chair Berger and abstentions from Commissioners Roman and Roche. Janet, did I get that correct? Okay, so that motion passes on a 4-vote yes. Okay, so now both of those have passed. So the new chair is Tori, and vice chair will be Alana. Okay, and now I'll turn it back to you, Chair, for discussion from the commissioners.
Okay. So I think Commissioner, our new chair, Vice Chair Berger, wants to have had a comment.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Roche is absolutely outstanding, and I've worked with her, and this was really kind of messed up how this was done because of that, because I don't want to hurt relations. And the way that this is traditionally done in all of the other commissions, and I don't know why it has changed in this commission, is it's kind of by seniority, and the next person who's been there the longest was the one that gets nominated. And it's kind of easy and simple. And that's kind of how council, from what I understand, intends for this to happen. So when we break protocol like that, we cause some problems. And I was going to nominate Commissioner Balbone because she's also outstanding and she's been here longer. And so I just wanted to bring that up. When you do it this way, you can cause problems. And when you skip kind of this rotation thing like this, you will leave people behind. I have had 7 people come and become newer than me and become the chair. And I've been here 6 years, and it's not just, I don't care. It's not a real ego thing for me. It's just the representation of the people. I'm appointed by Lauren Meister, and people voted her in. And so it's just, I just want to make that point. The way that this was done this time, we need to really think about that, because thank you, Commissioner Hallman, for what you did there. And I think you would be great too. But for me, it was a principle and a setting of precedence. That's all I have to say.
So thank you for your comment, Commissioner Berger. So I just wanted to say on behalf of my actions that I understand how the actual seniority line works in a lot of commissions. And I understand that that is the way that it is done on city council. I personally think that one of the issues within our government as a whole, and not West Hollywood city government, but I'm talking about government as a whole in the country, and also within our commission system, because there are a lot of people who complain about commissioners and commissioner appointments, and that it's sort of like the same person stays on for a while. There are a lot of things that I think that we don't have to just do because they're a quote unquote tradition. And to my point, things might have been different if if things hadn't happened in the past year and a half that it happened. But for me, it was important. I can sit around and talk a big game about reimagining policing and about trying to represent people of color and about bringing in groups, but I'm going at a certain point want to pull in people into leadership roles that are underrepresented in our community. I believe that Black people are underrepresented in our community and underrepresented in West Hollywood as a whole. And so I wanted to give someone else that voice. Like you said, you've been a longtime commissioner. You've been vice chair now for 2 years, just like myself has been chair for 2 years. And had we not had everything that happened last summer, that would have been different as well. So for me, it wasn't about trying to hurt feelings. It's about thinking about the good of the community and giving other voices a chance. Because just nominating someone putting someone on a commission is great for representation, but also giving people a chance at leadership is a very important step. So it wasn't a personal slight on you or a personal slight on the actual process of seniority, but I think that sometimes things supersede seniority. Commissioner Oliver?
Yeah, thank you. I was actually going to say something along that line that in politics too often, the idea that it only goes along seniority. We're here as a commission tasked with representing the interests of the city. The residents of this city. And so the idea that it's just taking turns in terms of seniority, that's not how I vote. I'm voting for the person who I think can help in any year to help move this commission in an efficient way that will represent the interests of the people in the city. So when I'm asked to vote for who to lead a commission, I'm not, just voting based on seniority. It's not just a title. It's not just we as commissioners, and then especially as like chair leading this commission, it's more than just a title and a formality. This is a real responsibility that we should be voting based on who we think, and it's not a slight to the other 6 people that we did not vote for. But this is not about our personalities. This is about the city and the residents of the city, and it's not about feelings, and it's not intended to be, nor is that really this isn't a club. We're here to represent the interests of the city. I don't know how else to say that. I think Chair Laughlin said it more eloquently than I am now, but that's not what this is about.
Anyone else have any comments? Commissioner Balbone?
So I am thrilled at the outcome of what we voted in as a commission. I think we accomplished what we were trying to accomplish based on the recommendation that was laid before us. The one thing that I would have liked to have seen from this commission is this dialogue before a motion was thrown on the table that then could not have been discussed further, because I do think that's the portion that I regret in any of this conversation this evening. And if we want to have fair and open dialogue, that should be done before someone throws a motion. So I'm really excited because I think we have two really good leaders, one who's served well and long in our community and shown a vested interest in our community, and a newer voice who actually represents a broad swath, including the females in this community. So I'm thrilled. I just wish it didn't take hurting feelings and or getting out of sorts. And I also do believe that Commissioner Hallman would have made an excellent chair as well, and I'm sure he will be one. So I am thrilled that we came to a closure on this. I just wish we could have done that before motions were put on the table, but it happens. So I think we've landed in a good spot. Most importantly, a good spot for the city and the people we represent.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Roche. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Hallman.
Yes, thank you. I don't know what to say, like Chair Laughlin, thank you. And yes, as a Black man, I have lived my whole life as part of an underrepresented community. My daily existence is more intense and harder than a white male. I accept that. It is what it is. My mother raised me to be a very strong person. I work hard to be the best person that I can be. A lot has happened over the last year. As I mentioned in my interview with Connie Rice, people of color have been killed by law enforcement for years. The only difference this time was we collectively watched a man die for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. Things are changing rapidly and quickly, and I'm thankful for this. I do feel we're going forward, but we're also going back with other issues. Again, I am beyond flattered. And when Councilmember Erickson appointed me, I said to him, I will do this position until I no longer feel I'm effective. I don't want to be here just to be here. But while I'm here, I'm over a 30+ year resident of West Hollywood and a Black man that again has been underrepresented in this community. So I'm honored to be here. And I still have a lot to learn as a commissioner, and I want to learn. Tori, I know, as I mentioned earlier, was very good and kind to me in the beginning when we were struggling as an East Side community. So I really appreciate that. Commissioner Roche, I marvel at her brilliance. I've told her this. I struggle to keep up with her. She is an inspiration to me. So with that being said, I'm happy with our appointments, and I want to continue to learn and grow from these two individuals as well as my other commissioners. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so then moving on to items from subcommittees. Any items from subcommittees? Subcommittees aren't meeting now, correct, Kristen?
We don't have any active ones, so nothing to report at this time.
Got it, okay. Items from staff?
We just put the meeting schedule for the rest of the calendar year in there for you all. That is all there as well. Oh, sorry, Janet has something.
Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Chair. If I could just echo Commissioner Roche's comments from before, the city clerk did ask that I remind everyone about the mandatory training on July 28th from 6 to 7:30 with Robin DiAngelo regarding the book White Fragility and the guest speaker racial justice conversation with Dr. Robin DiAngelo. So that is a mandatory conversation for the commission. And then also National Night Out is the first Tuesday of August, August 3rd. You can go to the city's website for more information on some of the events that will be taking place. Thank you.
Thank you. And then regarding the meeting schedule? And Kristen, are these going to be in person going forward?
At some point. Council is testing its first hybrid meeting on the 21st, I want to say, because there's a council meeting on that Monday, the 19th, and then a council meeting on the 21st. So the 19th is still remote, and the 21st, they're testing limited in person in the audience and some sort of Zoom remote option as well for people who still want to call in or watch. So they will be the guinea pigs to determine how commissions and boards move forward.
Got it.
Yeah. And I will add a disclaimer that is still tentative based on how the case counts continue to rise. If any other guidance or direction comes from the county or the state regarding gatherings and individuals indoors.
Okay. So any conflicts with the meeting dates? Nope. And same meeting time, Kristen?
At this point, we have you all meeting at 6. I mean, obviously tonight we were an hour late. So if somebody needs a different time than 6 p.m. for August. And again, we've got a bunch of cleanup items. Like once the commission is set, I know the mayor is going to make her appointment at the next, well, the July 21st council meeting. We need to get you all parking passes, check on business cards. You know, we've got a whole laundry list of things for all of you now that we're just about set with all of our permanent members. And meeting time and location, all those things. You know, we're at Plummer Park. We've kind of been meeting at 6. Does that still work when we go in person? You know, we'll be looking to all of you to guide us there.
Got it. Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the meeting times, meeting dates? Nope. Do we have any other public comments, Janet?
None.
Nope.
Public comment? Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes. If you'd like to speak, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hey, this is Wes. It's been a really interesting meeting, and I appreciate everyone's engagement. I'm really looking forward to what's happening and momentum that everyone is talking about. I feel that excitement too. And I really thank you, each and every one of you, for what you're doing right now. This is just like such an intense time. And thank you all. I just wanted to raise the memory of Jamel Moore and Timothy Dean and all the victims of Bedbuck as the federal trial begins tomorrow. There is a press conference at 8 a.m. in front of the courthouse. But the reason I'm speaking is just because it's bringing up so many feelings for everyone. And I just wanted to give the resource for a sex worker peer support group happening next Tuesday at 4 p.m. And we also have our SWAP LA general meeting this Thursday at 6 p.m. And in the past, we've had public safety commissioners attend. And that meeting, the general meeting on Thursday, is open to the public. Law enforcement is not allowed at any of these meetings. But you can find more information at swapllosangeles.org. That's SWOP, losangeles.org. And just closing in memory of Timothy Dean and Jamel Moore, and lifting up the families that have to get through this really difficult trial process. Thank you all.
Thank you, Wes. Commissioner Balbo?
I think that we missed that when we opened the meeting, but could we do an adjournment request in their honor because of what Wes has brought to our attention, just retrospectively?
Yes, but I do need
Yes.
one of you to actually say the words, if that's okay, just into the record.
I'd like to adjourn the meeting in memory of Jamel Moore and Timothy Dean.
Do we have any other commission or commissioner comments? Commissioner Roche?
I just want to just briefly say that I'm deeply moved by the comments and the share this evening, and for trusting me in this role as vice chair. It was extremely unexpected. So I'm a little lost for words, and Commissioner Hallman basically brought me to tears. So I'm trying to keep it together here. I just want to thank all of you, and I'm really honored to really honestly go on this journey with all of you for the next term. That's it. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Commissioner Oliver? You're muted.
Every time. All right, there we go. Last one of the night, I promise. I think it'd be a good idea if we kept nuisance items on the agenda, like until they're resolved or somewhat resolved. I'd like to keep cookies on the agenda since we don't have, we've kind of plateaued in it, my understanding, in terms of like nuisance abatement. I'd like
Commissioner Oliver, cookies is a standing item on our agenda for now.
Okay, so it is, okay,
yeah.
okay.
So it will stay on until we take it off, if that makes sense.
Awesome, no, that's perfect. I don't know how to, as a body, or just, I'd love to get something from the city attorney. If we can either ask somebody to present, or just to give us a written update from them for the next meeting, just so that we know what measures they're taking, where they stand, and you know, kind of keep them keeping us in the loop, since it, you know, affects the city of West Hollywood residents probably more than city of LA.
A written update from the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office?
Yes, I mean, since they would be the ones who would be, you know, issuing any sort of nuisance abatement orders to cookies.
So that's going to be really difficult for Lieutenant Muldery to get our hands on. If you have a contact that could possibly help with that, maybe we could talk offline.
Yeah, we definitely can. I just want to make sure that we're kind of holding the city of Los Angeles's feet to the fire a little bit, in terms of, you know, in an official capacity from the city of West Hollywood.
Believe me, West Hollywood is doing everything it can.
Oh, sure.
Mayor Pro Tem Meister has been a big supporter with assisting. We've met with Koretz's office. You know, Joan and his office has been amazing. Our city attorney is talking to their attorneys, and it's not just the city attorney's office, also their cannabis attorneys. They have different attorneys for that.
Have they met the cannabis commission in the city of LA? I know they keep canceling meetings.
Yes, and Lieutenant Mulder has given public comment. Our city attorney has given public comment. Cookies has not actually been on their agenda as a nuisance abatement item, though.
In terms of like revoking their cannabis license, or anything, that's not on?
Not with regard to nuisance, no.
Can we write the commission, the cannabis commission?
We have done all that from the staff level, from city attorney. And again, like, I don't want to drag this meeting out. It's 10:05.
Okay.
So maybe you and I and Bill can talk
Awesome.
tomorrow or later this week. But yeah, any LA insight or context that you've got, we're happy to connect.
Awesome.
Meeting adjourned.
Good night, everyone.
I think Mr. Berger is he? Are you waving your hand, or are you?
Yeah, no, a comment.
Oh, okay.
Well, Wes just left. I just wanted to thank him. Oh no, he's still here. Wes Siegmiller, thank you for coming, as you have, and you've invested your time in giving us feedback. It's really appreciated. And I just want to say I'm literally really humbled about becoming the chair. I'm kind of worried about it now a little bit. I don't know if, you know, I'm worried. I worry about these meetings. And if anybody has anything you can give me, email me so I can up my game and improve myself so I can be better, please do it. I want it. And so I really look forward to this. I'm worried about it. I'm going to try my hardest. And this was a long meeting, and thank you everybody for hanging in there. And I think we've got one of the best commissions I've seen in this entire 6 years. So I really hope that we can do something really great.
We appreciate you, Tori.
Thanks, Tori. Meeting now adjourned.
Good night.
Night.